preseason media day. We're delighted to have you all with us today, and we're especially delighted as we're coming up to a new Ivy League football season. I'm Jack Ford, a former Yale football player, currently a PBS host, and I've had the great privilege of acting as the analyst for ESPN for the Ivy League football games for the last few seasons. So it's been a great opportunity for me to share my experiences with the Ivy League with all of the folks out there, and to also make sure we underscore the importance of the Ivy League and our accomplishments. So we're delighted to have you all here with us. We hope that this will be both informative and also entertaining for all of you. A couple of notes before we get started here. First, just to remind you that the entire program is going to be recorded. It's going to be published on the league's YouTube site. And also, if you'd like a recording sent to you directly, what you should do is just please reach out to JJ Klein, who's the league office's football communications contact, and get him at jj@ivyleague.com. That's jj@ivyleague.com. He'll make those arrangements for you. A couple of other notes as we launch into this next Ivy League football season. Important to keep in mind that once again, the league is going to have a significant television presence. As part of its long-term league-wide agreement with ESPN, leagues once again going to have 6 games broadcast on the linear networks. In the past, it's been ESPNU, ESPN2. They've done a fabulous job for us. They've been delighted with the job that we have done with them and the quality of the football that they've been showing on their various platforms. Also, as part of the deal, the remainder of all home Ivy League games are going to be available on ESPN Plus. And the league will also be featured on a number of regional sports networks throughout the season, including New England Sports Network, SNY, and NBC Sports Philadelphia. Also important for us to underscore some of the successes and the individual accolades leading into this season. A number of players have been recognized leading up to the season. There have been 4 players who earned preseason All-American notes from Phil Steele and his platform. As you all know, one of the experts on college football. And Phil Steele certainly emphasizes the quality of Ivy League football, which we're always delighted to see. We've seen a pair of players, Yale defensive lineman Clay Patterson, Princeton wide receiver Andre Yoshevas, who've garnered preseason All-American honors from multiple outlets, again, recognizing their accomplishments and anticipating what they'll be providing coming into this season. Another important note for you here, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, and that's the level of success that the league has achieved in their out-of-conference games. So if you look over the last decade, since 2020, Ivy League schools have posted a winning percentage just under 60% out of conference. And you must remember that they play a very strong out of conference schedule here. Just last season, collectively, the league was 17-7 in non-conference play, underscoring how well we have done when we wander outside the bounds of our Ivy League institutions. Also want to mention, and we are very careful about mentioning in our broadcasts in the past, and that is the presence of former Ivy League players on NFL rosters. And again, the idea has been to make sure that we recognize and applaud the quality of play in this league, as reflected by how many Ivy League players are on NFL rosters. Last season, 12 players were on final 53-man rosters. I know 2 years ago that number was actually up closer to 20, if I remember correctly. And that last year was the 3rd most of any FCS conference, once again underscoring the strength of the football that's played by the Ivy League schools. Also should mention that Brown alum Michael Hoyt was able to lift the Lombardi Trophy with Los Angeles Rams last year as a Super Bowl winner, marking the 4th straight year that we've had an former Ivy League player on the Super Bowl champion. And since 2008, Ivy League football has produced 14 Super Bowl champions. Significant numbers. Now, again, for our format here, we're going to have a few comments to open up by Robin Harris in just a moment. Then when we move to each school alphabetically, we'll have head coach. 2 of their student athletes will join the coach. The coach will make a couple of introductory comments, some thoughts on the season. I'll offer some questions to both coaches and to the players. And then we're hopeful that you, as media members, will have questions also. And what you do is you use the raise hand function, and you'll be prompted once it's your turn to ask a question. So Once again, delighted to have you all joining us as we are looking forward to kicking off yet another fantastic, what should be another fantastic Ivy League football season. I want to bring in for a couple of introductory comments our executive director, Robin Harris, in her 14th year of leadership, leading the conference. Among other accomplishments, significant accomplishments, the league signed a groundbreaking television rights deal we've mentioned with ESPN, ensuring that over 1,100 Ivy League events per year are broadcast over ESPN networks. Nationally recognized as a leader in college athletics, Robin recently appointed to the very significant NCAA Transformation Committee by her peers, and also additionally named the Board of Trustees chair of the Women's Sports Foundation. We are delighted to have her as our leader for these 14 years. And Robin, it's always a pleasure to see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Jack. And it's always great to see you, such a supporter and a testament to Ivy League athletics and the success, frankly, of our model and of our alumni. So thanks so much for being with us. And good morning and welcome to Ivy League Football Media Day. I'm incredibly excited for the unofficial start to the 2022 Ivy League football season. I would like to extend a special welcome to all of our media members joining us today. Thank you for your passion and your professionalism and for telling the stories of our Ivy League football student athletes. You know, August brings the excitement and anticipation of another season, and we are beyond excited for our student athletes and our first-class coaches to showcase the unrivaled experience of Ivy League football. The continued national success of the Ivy League will no doubt be visible again this year, as Jack alluded to in his opening comments. Our presence in the NFL will continue. We already have 18 Ivy alums in NFL training camps this summer, and that is similar to prior years. And our NCAA success, year after year, numerous Ivy League teams are ranked in the national FCS rankings. The quality of Ivy League football remains strong. This on-the-field success is combined with our commitment to providing world-class academics. In fact, we recently placed 84 student athletes on the National Football Foundation Hampshire Honor Society. That is by far the most student athletes of any conference across all 3 divisions in the NCAA. We cannot wait to see these Ivy League athletes step up onto the national stage and continue to further the tradition of success that is Ivy League football. And during a time when so much of college athletics is focused on realignment, the transfer portal, and the future of the NCAA, I invite you to tune in on ESPN each weekend and take notice of a conference that is rooted in collegiality, stability, and principles, and of course, filled with incredibly talented student athletes on the field. So thank you to everyone for your support of Ivy League football, and I hope you enjoy today's program and the 2022 Ivy League football season. Jack, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Robin, once again, our thanks to you for the wonderful leadership you have shown over the years and the great accomplishments that we've been able to enjoy under your leadership. Robin, thanks, and look forward to seeing you at games, as a matter of fact, now that you're out traveling again with us. So here's what we want to do now. We are going to begin with the Brown University representatives for our conversation here. And we're delighted to be joined by head coach James Perry, along with offensive lineman Lucas Ferraro and outside linebacker Junior Gaffa. Coach Perry, I'm going to start with you as your players join us here. So you're going into your 4th season in your alma mater. Folks will remember and I certainly remember your legendary career as a player here, and you've moved into now the coaching ranks. You have, I remember Bear Bryant famously saying when he left Texas A&M to go to Alabama, he was asked why, and his response was, "Mama called." And I suspect your reaction was similar when you chose to move back to Brown. Let me ask you to just start us off with a couple of thoughts that you have leading into this 2022 season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. It is exciting time at Brown and in Brown football. A new year, a new training camp upon us here. So I'm thrilled about kind of being able to coach football again after a little bit of summer. I'm also thrilled we got a great group. And, at Brown, what that means at Jack, what that means for us is we have seniors. Like, this is our third season here, but you're right. It's been 4 years. And whether it's junior or his fellow seniors, that's our first class. So I know the school, the administration, the staff worked very hard to kind of rebuild what is always a proud Brown football tradition. And I'm pumped to be coaching them this summer. It'll be a lot of fun.
Let me ask you this, and I've had the opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to watch your program and its evolution since you came back. And I will say to you, from a football perspective, you really feel that the program is getting better. It's getting stronger. And yet you, as the head coach and the competitor that you are is going to be the first one to say, that's fine, but it's not reflected in the record. You look at a 1-6 Ivy record last year, some close games. So understanding there's growth there, what then do you feel you have to do with this team to get the record to reflect the improvement in the program?
Yeah, so we got to get faster. It's funny. My job as the coach with these guys and the guys that I'll see later this week is it doesn't matter whether we're 10-0 or last year. If we're not getting better in this league, you're done. You will not survive. And I've been lucky. I've coached both at Brown as an assistant and at Princeton championship teams. And my message this August will be much the same. We got to get better. We got to get a little faster. We got to, come together as a team. And for me, we're leaning on seniors. That's kind of Ivy League is a junior senior league. Leaning on those guys will be made much easier because we have a big class. I'm really proud of the fact that those guys stuck together. We got 27 of them, which is kind of unheard of in my experience in the Ivy League, even with some championship teams mixed in there. So for us, it doesn't matter what last year was. It's let's make sure that we're getting better. We're getting a little bit faster, embrace that process. And I look forward to getting out there Thursday and doing that.
One more question for you, and then I want to bring in both Lucas and Junior into the conversation. You had the marvelous opportunity to coach E.J. Berry, all right, a nephew, an extraordinarily talented football player, and an Ivy Player of the Year, in the conversation for National Player of the Year. Whenever coaches talk about the idea of having to replace a starter at quarterback, and we've heard people say, you said this is a junior senior league. People oftentimes say it's a quarterback driven league, although you probably say that about any team in the country, any league in the country nowadays. But talk about your challenges then, having to replace one of the all-time great football players in Brown history.
Yeah, and it's great to see him doing well down at with the Jaguars. We're pulling for him. I think what EJ did came and injected some life when we really needed it a couple of years ago. Obviously, the program was in a bad position, but we're in a very different position now. And we know that the quarterback is not going to replace EJ. Simultaneously, we know just how much deeper we are as a team and how I can lean on. We send a lot of offense through EJ. And that will not be the case. We're just so much deeper, and whether it's leadership or talent, it's just spread across so many more guys now, which was always the goal. When I took over, I said, Brown football, we're 110 man deep. We got a really proud history here of watching guys develop and making them better. So now we're in that position where we can disperse instead of sending it so much of it through EJ. And we appreciate what he did. But we're in a different position now, and I look forward to watching these guys and the other guys that come in on Thursday kind of having that dispersed throughout the locker room.
Lucas, let me bring you into the conversation on the heels of what Coach just had to say. You are deeper, certainly, than you've been. You lose some significant talent in terms of your quarterback. And again, as Coach said, everything was running through him, more so than you see oftentimes. Talk about what this has been like for you as a leader on the offense during the off season, leading up to practice getting started now, to help guide the newer players and even to shepherd the older players to understand, all right, this is a different team. Now we're going to have a different identity here. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having us, Jack. We really appreciate it. This off season, we've had a great summer. Working out as groups here at Brown, really getting bigger, faster, stronger, working together, whether that's on our own, as offensive line, hanging out, watching film, going through the playbooks, really trying to master our craft. And I'm sure that, a bunch of the other groups are doing it too. The wide receivers are always hanging out, throwing, catching, running routes together. The quarterbacks are always throwing, catching, taking snaps from the centers. Working as a group whenever we can. And a lot of it starts with accountability. I think we've done a great job this summer, making sure everyone's there on time, showing up, doing it right, doing it well. And when we do get to go out in the field together as a team this fall, I think all that work we put in this summer with the leaders that have been here, it can really start to spread and, it can affect the rest of the team in a really good way, holding each other accountable, playing fast.
Junior, from your perspective on the defensive side of the ball, and you personally had an exceptional season last year, second team All-Ivy, leading the team in tackles, lost some talent off of that from that side of the ball. So as you look back at what the defense accomplished last year, what do you think needs to be done for that side of the ball to get better this year?
Yeah. Thanks, Jack, for having us. I think defensively, it's really just going to come down to how we play with each other, being able to get that chemistry down and understand our roles on the defense individually and as a group. So, like Lucas said, this offseason has been a great opportunity for many of the guys up here to form those relations and be able to bond beyond just ball and come back and be ready for Thursday to get this all going. So, yeah.
Let's bring in some of the media folks. I saw that Scott Cordishi from Ivy League on ESPN had a question here. So let's see if we can bring Scott into it.
Thank you, Jack. Not sure if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you. I'm seeing a big B for Brown in my screen, which I'm sure makes these folks happy. But we can hear you, Scott.
Okay, just a question for Coach Perry, and I know you touched on it a little bit. And Coach, just talk about the competition at quarterback with EJ's graduation. Can you talk to us about some of the guys involved in that competition, how it went during spring football, and will that competition continue when your kids report to camp later on this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the quarterback position, like a lot of these positions that everyone's in across the country, we're looking to get better, whether it's yourself, Lucas is returning center. We need him to be better. Junior's returning outside linebacker. We need him to be better. And now we have a new quarterback. So the two guys that took a little bit of more reps in the spring were Jake Wilcox and Aiden Gilman. But we have a very deep room in there, Scott, and it'll be really fun to watch some of those younger guys go at it in August. And this will not be a fast decision. We will definitely be taking reps and competing for that position well past the Yale scrimmage. So it's a good room. It's a deep room. We're not going to ask, we're going to be a different team, a deeper team that will be able to kind of ask them to do things that in a different way than we did with EJ. But it's a great room and it's a good group.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Scott. Also, Nick Coit has a question. Nick from WLNE. Nick, are you with us?
Hello, Jack. Can you hear me?
We can indeed. Nick, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. So question for Lucas, and still on the offensive side of the ball here. Whoever does end up winning the job as the quarterback, how important will it be for, the guys up front? And particularly, you look at your skill position, wide receiver, there's a lot of experience there. How important will it be for the new quarterback, whoever it is, to lean on guys like you up front and some of the skill guys?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think, all the guys in the quarterback room have done a really good job, relying on us as the offensive line up front and wide receivers to be consistent. But, we always rely on them too, also as the quarterback, as leaders of the field, to be, very accurate and dependable also. I think we do a good job, holding each other accountable. And as Coach Perry said, I'm really looking forward as a center to the competition between the quarterbacks this year. I really like the quarterbacks, great friends of mine, great teammates. So I'm really looking forward to the competition and seeing how this team can get better.
Nick, good for you?
I can get a defensive question in here with Junior as well.
Absolutely.
So Junior, how important has it been, this off season to be able to have a normal off season? And you were talking about bonding with some of the guys on that side of the ball, and looking back at last season, what you can do better, and bonding and taking it into this season, knowing the last couple of years, obviously we've been dealing with a pandemic and COVID. So to have a normal off season, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, no, definitely. This past spring was really big for the program. Since we've been here, that was our first actual spring ball, which was great success for us, and a lot of potential coming out of the spring. I think a big thing, as Coach Perry mentioned, our senior class, being able to bring that experience back, playing throughout the program all these years, and getting a lot of those guys back just to get after it. This upcoming camp is going to be really exciting. So, yeah.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it.
All right, Nick, certainly. While we're waiting for any other questions, Coach, let me come back to you if I can for a moment. And this comes back to your comment about some depth at different positions. And I know having covered and called some of the games, I've been very impressed by the quality of your wide receivers. Talk about what you have coming back on the field there.
Yeah, and when you talk about playing fast, that group feeds off each other. So we got on the older end, we got guys who were all league last year, like Wes Rocket and Graham Walker, and good leadership from guys like Hayes Sutton, who's caught a lot of balls for us. But in the spring, we saw a lot of freshmen who were pushing them from behind, and that's the point where you need to be as a program to win in this league. Is you have guys who are all league type players, Wes and Graham and Hayes and some of those guys, but actually you got young guys like Jordan McIntyre and Sam Badu pushing them from below just as hard. And we're always going to put 6-7 wide receivers on the field no matter what. So we need that depth. And I think that's where we want to be 3 years ago as a program, is get to that point where guys are feeding off that competition. We're always looking to get a little bit faster, a little bit better. And that position expresses it really well. You got some really good high-end talent guys, but the whole room is pushing and feeding off each other. And when Junior's talking about the linebacker position and some of those guys forming those bonds, I know we got young guys pushing him. He's an all-league player. He's done a terrific job, but we're trying to fill that room up with guys who want to get on the field too.
Scott's got another question here for you. Scott, jump in.
Junior, question for you, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier. I had a chance to talk to Coach Jackson this spring, and he talked about what he felt was a noticeable difference in the experience on your side of the football and how it showed itself in spring practice. You look at the combination of playing a lot of puppies on your side of the ball, Coach Perry's first couple of years here, and then the COVID interruption. Did you feel like that this spring? Did it show itself on the field? Do you feel like that, that experience is going to help you guys heading into the season?
Yeah, it definitely is. Hey, that back seven's a big part of this program. I think we, like Coach Perry said, a lot of those young guys are really stepping up. Jose Reed, a couple of those other guys, but our senior classes, just as good leaders to bring those guys up and be able to mold those guys in a way that it fits our program and it fits our defense. So really excited for all of them.
All right. One more last quick question, and Coach, I'll come back to you for this. And again, you talked about the quality of the young guys coming in. When you're out there pitching Brown University, and clearly the academics pitch themselves, but when you're talking about the program, how valuable has it been for you in the few years that you've been back here as the head coach now to be able to point to the quality of the guys who were here previous, the quarterbacks, yourself, there's a whole bunch of others you can point to, running backs, wide receivers, the skill position guys. Does that help you in terms of getting kids saying, you know what, I think I want to be part of that legacy?
I mean, I think it definitely has helped. I think if you asked Junior and Lucas 4 years ago why they chose Brown, it was because they thought they were going to win at Brown, and Brown football was going to be a great place for them to play football. And I hope I exude that. I have an expression, whenever guys come to campus from a recruit perspective, I want them to be just as excited about Brown University and Brown football as I am, because I love the place. I know its history. I know what a Brown degree can do for you and for your life. And I also know how much fun it is to play football here. So I think these guys felt it. That's why they're here. In each successive class, we just get a little deeper and a little stronger. And I hope I infect all of them with a little bit of that I love Brown energy.
Seems to be working, Coach. Gentlemen, Junior, Lucas, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. It's been a pleasure watching you play in the past. Look forward to watching you play this year. Coach, always a pleasure to connect with you and catch up on things. Just some notes, just to remind you that Brown opens up against, Coach, your former team, Bryant, on Saturday, September 17th at 12:30, and we will see Brown versus Princeton on Friday, October 14th down in Princeton. Look forward to that. So, Coach,
Thanks,
Lucas, Junior, good luck to all of you. You all stay well. All right, as we move on here in our cavalcade of coaches and players, we're going to bring in the folks from Columbia. And so we have joining us head coach Al Bagnoli, along with offensive lineman Stu Newblatt and linebacker Scott Valentis. Let's see about bringing everybody in here with us. Coach Bagnoli, welcome to you. Always good to see you.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Great.
I think we've got your guys joining us here. So while we're getting them on board, Coach, let me start with you if I can. All right, we got Stu and Scott both with us. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. We'll get to you in a second. Coach Bagnoli, let me start with you. And just some thoughts by you as you're heading into this next season at Columbia.
Well, I think I'm like most people at this time of the year, we're cautiously optimistic. You know, we have a good group of kids. We have good culture now that we've been cultivating for the last 2-3 years. And we have experience virtually at every position now, and it's a byproduct of continual recruitment. And so when you just look at the bigger picture, if you have kids that have had significant snaps, and we'll start off at quarterback, say with Joe Green, who's had now 10 games under his belt, at running back with Ryan Young, at receivers with 3 or 4 different kids who have played tremendous amount of football, at tight end with all the kids returning, in the offensive line, at defensive line, kickers, linebackers such as Scotty, kids in the secondary. This is about as experienced across the board. And so that gives us reason for optimism. And, we've graduated some talented kids, and we've had kids move on to some prominent programs as graduate transfers, but we feel good about the young depth behind them, the younger kids that are ready, hopefully, to take the next step. So we look at it as, trying to push the program as far as we can push it, making sure that, we're ready to go logistically on Thursday when everybody reports, but also understanding that we should be the beneficiary of having spring football last year, which we didn't have the year before, having off-season workouts this past year, which we haven't had before in 2020 and 2021 spring. So we're optimistic. We're like everybody else.
Let me ask you about the development of the program since the time you've been there, and
Yep.
and it's kind of amazing to me how many years now you have been there.
Yeah, me
but-
too.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say, certainly, and for a long period of time before you got there, I think the pattern seemed to be for Columbia, they'd have a good season. They had a good collection of players, and then things would fall off for a while, and then maybe another good season would pop up. You're now have built. Oftentimes people say have built a program, in the sense that you're 7-3 last year. That's not a surprise to anybody. The way some years back a Columbia team being 7-3 was, quite frankly, a surprise, and it's become consistent there. What do you think have been the most significant changes during the course of your tenure that has allowed Columbia to become now a consistent winner?
Well, I think it starts off with our players. They're, and again, recruiting the right kind of kids, putting them in an environment for them to succeed, surrounding them with great people, whether it's your assistant coaches or whether it's your strength coaches or your nutritional people or your medical people. And I think I've tried to do all that. And to me, it's always been a great product. It's a phenomenal school, and arguably the most vibrant city in the world, certainly in the United States. So it's an opportunity for kids who want an urban setting, to kind of get the best of everything. So it hasn't been an overly hard sell, to be honest with you. And then it's identifying the kids that you want in your program, and how do they fit, and what are the personal characteristics that you find to be important that you can build upon. And so I think we have a blueprint. We had it at Penn, and we're pretty much trying to follow that same blueprint at Columbia, and then getting kids that are really passionate about football. They're certainly coming here for other reasons besides football, but football now is front and center of a lot of kids' decision. And I think that's proven to be very beneficial as well. And, it's been a culmination of a lot of things: facility improvements, budgetary improvements. But I think at the core, it's finding the right kids, it's developing them and surrounding them with great people in all different venues. And I think we've been able to do that.
Let me bring you into the conversation here. You served as a captain last year for that 7-3 team. Coming back, I think most people have been saying that perhaps one of the strengths will be the offensive line, a good core coming back. But as you look back at last year, what do you see as the needs to improve for, let's talk about the offensive line, and let's talk about the offense in general?
Yeah, I think when you look at the offense and ways we can improve, I think the thing that we need the most is just consistency. We had flashes last year. We were really good at some points, then we could fall flat at some points. So I think we just need to improve on our consistency, showing up every play, showing up every game, and just performing at the level we all know we're capable of. I think the way we do that is we just have to put in the work day after day. The coaches did a great job of instilling a culture on the team of what we need to be doing, how hard we need to be working. So we just need to follow that, put in the work day after day. We're so excited for the season to get started. So just putting in the work.
Scott, similar question to you. And you've had also an exceptional career up to now, a freshman All-American, all-league player. But as you look at, let's go back to your first year. And then let's look at to what you're anticipating for this year. What have you seen in terms of the improvement on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I would say the biggest improvements would be it's more of a player-led team versus my freshman year. We've kind of developed a culture, as you asked Coach Bagnoli, on like how the progression has gone from the player point of view. The culture, as we've gone through the years, has really progressed. And even over COVID, we still continue to try to build that culture of just, consistency, accountability, giving effort every single play. And I think that's kind of going to be an even bigger building block that we'll have this season is we're going to have that team-led culture where, the guys from the bottom are still working hard, but they're coming to us first before they go ask the questions to the coaches. And we're instilling what we've learned into them and then kind of building up off of that. So we just have a more well-rounded team and everyone's kind of grouped together around the same goal.
Coach, what do you think about that? And it's Scott's comments, Stu's comments. What do you think about, as a head coach, the notion of it becoming more of a player-led team? Why is that important?
Oh, I think that's critical. I think if you can get leadership spread out through a variety of people, whether they're seniors or juniors or sophomores, and not everything's being funneled through the coaches, I think that's a really healthy program. So I encourage that. We have leadership council groups. We spend a lot of time on team building and communication stuff and culture and everything else. So to me, I just think that's a natural progression, as we're trying to get to. So it's good to hear Scott say that. So, hopefully it comes to fruition. There'll be less headaches off of my plate.
Yeah. Coach, let me go back to you. We mentioned quarterback Joe Green, the Ivy League Rookie of the Year last year. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at his emergence through the season, at the progress he made? And then I guess the follow-up to that is, what are you hoping to see from him this season in terms of building on last year?
Yeah, first of all, it's a credit to Joe. I mean, just to refresh your memory, we were not in session during the spring of 21. So we never had a chance to go through spring ball and see what he could do. We never had a chance to actually have off-season workouts that were organized by our strength coaches on campus. So he kind of came in and we had to figure out, what kind of offense we were going to be once we figured out who the quarterback was going to be. And to Joe's credit, he's worked really hard. It was a seamless transition. And we feel so much more comfortable now because we now have a much, much more definitive look at what Joe can and can't do and what he's good at and what he's comfortable with. And he's had a terrific offseason. He's physically progressed, and is probably just as importantly, he has mentally progressed. It'll be his second year in a system. And from our perspective, I think we can just keep adding things on his plate and he should seamlessly, accept it and do well with it. And I think one of the exciting things is, having a kid that we feel very comfortable with because we feel really good about the skill kids around him. And so once you feel comfortable that you have the quarterback, then I think it allows you to be a little bit more wide open than what we showed last year. Certainly a little bit more aggressive in our approach than what we showed last year. And hopefully that will result in, some bigger plays and some more explosive plays than what we've had last year.
And Stu, I made a point of asking you about the offensive line first, because as you know, oftentimes offensive linemen are asked about their quarterbacks first. Right? So I wanted to make sure that you guys are all getting the credit that you deserve here. That being said, talk about the quarterback. Talk about Joe Green and from your perspective on the line, seeing him develop, and what do you think the offense as a whole will be able to do this year, perhaps either more or better, that they weren't able to do last year?
Yeah. When you look at the quarterback and Joe, and I think it's the whole quarterback room in general, I don't think it's just Joe. Joe's obviously the leader in that room and he's progressed a lot. But I think everyone's really bought into our quarterbacks and what we can do. They've all been here all summer working hard, and they've just made tremendous strides, not only as players, but as leaders on the team, which is awesome to see. When you look at what the offense is trying to do, how it might change, I think I'm just going to echo a lot of what Coach Bagnoli said, maybe be a little more aggressive and change the game plan up a little more from what we were able to do last year as Joe was a first-year quarterback, and now we have more of an idea of what he can do and where he can fit into our system. So just echo a lot of what Coach Bagnoli said there.
Yeah. Scott, from your perspective on the other side of the ball, again, you've lost some talent from there. What do you see the defense being able to do better this season, perhaps, than you were able to do last year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're going to be able to do better from last year would be just our intellect of the game. As Coach Bagnoli says, we didn't have that 2021 offseason to get ready to assimilate into the culture, to understand the plays, the way we wanted to. And now that we have a lot of guys that freshmen, sophomores that are coming into the system kind of have a feel of what they need to do, we can kind of focus on the why are they doing that. So like I said earlier, it's a player-led team. We have, each designated head of each position group, and those heads, they come together to formulate what they want to do, why they want to do it. And when we're on the field, it's, I see a lot of communication going into what plays being called, what the coaches have given us to work with. And so I think that's going to be like our, selling point is the intellect of the game, whether that's studying film, understanding what our opponent wants to do. We can understand the why of how we want to attack it because we have a better understanding of the playbook.
Coach, let me come back to you for a last question here, and it follows up on something we said before when we were talking about, the idea of recruiting and coming to Columbia. Have you found that your ability to bring talented young student athletes has markedly improved by being able to point to guys such as this, Stu and Scott, and guys that you've had, recently who have graduated, but perhaps more important, the notion of going back to what I said before, it's not now a surprise when Columbia has a winning season.
Yeah, we've been able to attract some pretty talented kids. And if you just kind of, I mentioned earlier that we had, lost some significant kids that went on as grad transfers. But, we have a kid who's a scholarship linebacker at Duke, a scholarship defensive end at Virginia, a kid at South Carolina, a kid at Florida State, a kid at Rhode Island, which, maybe wasn't the case 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And again, it's just identifying the right kids, bringing them in here, and then putting them in a culture where they can flourish and develop and, turn out to be pretty good players. And I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that. And obviously, you're always trying to build from young kids up, and it's a nice combination of older kids, some talented younger kids that have not had an opportunity yet, that this will be their time, and hopefully supplementing them with a class coming in. But it's really been a fun thing for me, and I think our entire Columbia University alumni base and family is excited about where the program is, and hopefully moving forward, we can continue to build on it.
Last question for you, Coach. We started off with me asking about, all right, what do you have to get better at to move forward? But you just mentioned, the Columbia University, the community, the players, the fans, being excited coming into this season. What do you think, what would you point to when you would say to them, this is why this is going to be an exciting year for Columbia?
Well, again, it goes back to my earlier statement. I think we have enough demonstrated return in talent that you can actually put on film and watch them successfully compete in our league. And I think that's always a great starting point. And obviously, it's a quarterback-driven offensive league. So, we feel good about where we are there. And then I think you always need a couple playmakers on defense, whether they're in your front group, your second level, and you need a couple of talented kids on the third level. And I think we have that. And then finally, we have some pretty accomplished specialists returning. We graduated some great kids, but we also have some talented kids such as Alex Falcon's back, that gives you a weapon there. So again, we have enough right across the board on all different levels on offense and defense to be excited. And now it's our job and, to get them to play well, and knock on wood, our key kids remain healthy, and we can continue to develop depth and cohesion, not only with the returners, but also the incoming kids, and plug them in and see how far we can take the program.
All right, a couple of quick scheduling notes for you. We lose you. Columbia is going to head up the Hudson to take on Marist in its season opener Saturday, September 17th at 6 p.m. And certainly we at ESPN will see you all on a Friday night, October 28th, when Yale comes to visit to Columbia. So, Stu and Scott, thank you very much. Good luck to both of you. Coach Bagnoli, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Look forward to seeing you during the season. You all be well and stay healthy. Thanks, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right. As we say goodbye and thank you to our friends from Columbia, we get to say hi and welcome to our friends from Cornell. So joining us today, head coach David Archer, along with wide receiver Thomas Glover and linebacker Jake Stebbins joining us now. Let's see if we can get them well on board here. And when we do, we can get started. All right, we got Coach Archer joining us.
Jack,
hey, Coach. Good, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Good to see you as always. We're as your guys are joining us. Thomas is here now. Jake should be with us. Jake's joining us right now also. So Thomas and Jake, welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to you in just a moment here. Coach, let me start with you if I can. We always mention in coverage the idea of your being able to come back to your alma mater to coach here, and what a great privilege, and you talk about it often. I was looking at some of the notes and I was a bit astonished to see that it's your 10th year back here as a head coach, an assistant, an outstanding player at Cornell. So let me ask you for some of your quick thoughts as we head into the 2020 season, and then we'll have some conversation here with all of you.
Yeah, I don't know about the outstanding player part. You know what I mean? I got next to Kevin Booth. He did most of the work. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I can't believe it either, Jack. I'm going to be 40 this fall, like a midlife crisis. You know, I've been here 10 years, and this will be my 20th with the program. 4 as a player, 6 as an assistant, 10 as the head coach. And it really is a tremendous privilege. You get to recruit and coach guys like Thomas and Jake and get to be involved with, I think, top to bottom, one of the most competitive football leagues in the country. And it's just a remarkable, challenge, and it's really fun to be a part of it and work to keep making strides with our program. And I think that, 2022 is going to be one that's going to be really memorable for us. I think last year, and I want to spend about 3 seconds talking about last year because it's ancient history. But last year, I didn't do a great job managing all the numbers. We had such a huge roster and kind of unprecedented circumstances, and really reflect on not doing a great job that way. And I think I probably am the only one in the program that held on to it. And the day that season ended, these guys did a tremendous job, Jake and Thomas and a lot of other senior leaders, really turning the page and establishing what they want for the 2022 season. And that's part of the great thing about football. You get to reinvent yourself every year, and every year's team, adds into a collection that becomes this program. And really nothing has one to do with 1 year to the next, whether you're coming off a great momentum or not. You have to reestablish yourself that year. And I think these older kids have done a great job of doing that. And I think that for us, a big theme, is taking advantage of our opportunities. And that starts with our schedule. When they changed up the Ivy League schedule a couple of years ago, we used to start with our first league games. One was home, one was away. When they changed the schedule, it became feast or famine. Either the first 2 league games are either on the road or they're going to be at home. And because of COVID being canceled, we've started our last 2 Ivy League seasons, both league games on the road. We started at Yale and then at Harvard in 2019 and in 2021. Well, this year we get the inverse of it. We get to start our league games at home. We host Yale, then we host Harvard. We have 4 league games at home this year instead of 3. And so we got to take advantage of those opportunities. We got to make Sholkoff a tough place to play, particularly when you think of this, and I don't know if James mentioned it or Al, the guys that are seniors in this league, not the 5th years, but the guys that are seniors in this league have never played that road schedule, right? So Jake Stebbins is a true senior. He's never gone to Princeton. He's never gone to Brown. He's never gone to Columbia. So the inverse of that is true, right? The guys on Yale and Dartmouth and Harvard and Penn that are true seniors have never come to Ithaca. So I think we got to take advantage of that opportunity. And that starts with, training camp, putting great practices together and putting the team together. So long-winded opening comments, but that's kind of the starting point for me.
And I think your point about having a chance to go to other buildings is important. Harvard, we're going to talk about this in a little while, but Harvard has not played Yale in Harvard Stadium in 6 years because of all sorts of complications. They had a number of complications we'll talk about. But you talk about coming into places. I remember first time I came in Shelkoff playing for Yale, and it was at the time Shelkoff was one of the only two schools that had artificial surfaces. Right? Franklin Field did, Penn did at the time also. And I remember coming onto the field and the artificial surface and the big arch stands there. And, you know, as a player, you like to do that. Now, would you rather be playing home? Sure you would. But you like to get into some of these buildings. And I think, as you said, this year should feel a lot more normal for everybody in a lot of ways. And I'll get to some of that with the players in a second. But Coach, but one other question for you. You talked about last year was over. I will tell you, having seen a couple of your games last year, that if you just watched the games and the quality of play for Cornell, you may well have been surprised when you saw what the final record was. Mm-hmm. I know as head coaches, that's not necessarily a compliment to you, but it's meant to be just a suggestion that there's quality players there. So looking back at last year then, and looking at what you want to do and accomplish this year, what do you think are the most significant things that need to improve so that the final record will accurately reflect the quality of the play and the players?
Yeah, I think that, you know, to address what you're saying, you're absolutely correct. You know, I got two guys on the screen here that I think could be as good as anybody at their position or on their side of the ball, you know, in this league, you know. And when you take over a program, I think it was one of Bobby Bowden's quotes is, you know, you lose big, you lose close, you win close, and you win big, and you kind of go in that spectrum. And we've been in this lose close, win close phase for longer than I've wanted to be, you know, longer than anybody has. And so when it comes down to tight ball games like that we seem to inevitably be playing in a lot. You know, one of my coaches had come from Penn State, and he's like, Dave, we practice 2-minute drill a lot around here. Like, we didn't do that at Penn State. You know, I said, well, you know, these Ivy League games are tight. They're going to come down to these last possessions a lot. So I think for us, we need to stop beating ourselves. So we need to make sure we hold the football, take care of the football, don't give it away. We need to make sure we cut down on penalties, particularly on P and 10 or 1st and 10. What happens on those first couple plays of the drive can really dictate, you know, what your chances of points per possession are on that. And then I think the one other glaring thing for me is the red zone. You know, when we get into the red zone, it's got to produce 2 points and not field goals. So off the cuff, that's what I look at in terms of the actual, you know, schematics in the football part.
We often hear people say that this Ivy League, a quarterback-driven league, and I've said before, you can say that about a lot of leagues, I guess. But how do you look at your quarterback evolution here and what you're looking to for this season?
Yeah, you know, you can say that about any league, but what I really think is a better appropriate quote, I think it was Bill Cowher, said, your season is defined by your backups. And I find that to be really true in the game of football because the quarterback is important. And we've all seen teams that have a real live guy at quarterback, right? But all other positions on the offense and defense and the special teams, equally important. And we know it's a 10-game season with no buys. Hopefully someday there will be. But right now there's 10 games, no buys. These guys at all these schools compete in the classroom as well as on the field. And so you need to make sure you can develop the quality depth that even if you have a star quarterback, and I think we got a couple of good ones, right? It's all the other positions that could create a matchup problem in a hurry, where all of a sudden you have a true freshman playing whatever position and the team you're going against has a 5th-year senior at that position. Now you got yourself a matchup issue. So I think more the Ivy League is a team that's dedicated on the depth you're able to develop.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. That's what we've seen it play out throughout the course of the Ivy League history, certainly most recent history. Thomas, let me bring you into the conversation here if we can. You had an exceptional year last year, first team All Ivy as a receiver. And I'm curious, I want to talk to you about what you think the offense needs to do to improve, but just from a personal perspective, you made a transition from running back to a wide receiver and made it pretty spectacularly. All right. So talk a little bit about that from your perspective, you know, making that transition and then having such great success with it.
I just want to say thank you first. And the transition was definitely a difficult one, but it was made easy because I had great coaches on the offensive side of the ball that just like allowed me to, I guess, like really just like grow into my role as being a receiver. Like playing running back, I was spread out wide a lot, but it's much different just consistently being like actually out wide and having to run the full route tree and like, I guess, just like being out there a lot. I mean, it's a learning curve to just being playing in general. And like, it was really important for them to give me that confidence and instill that in me. And that really helped me throughout the season.
What was your first thought about the notion of changing? Because my guess is going to be, and look, a lot of guys, I went up to Yale as a quarterback. I was one of 11 quarterbacks. This was in the era where your freshmen could not play varsity. And you would get 3 varsity years. And I ended up starting for 3 years as a rover back, monster back kind of thing. So, very quickly, I kind of looked around. I said, maybe I'll look for a position on the other side of the ball. But as athletes, you tend to think of yourself, and I'm sure you thought of yourself as a running back. So what was your first reaction to this idea of becoming something else on a football field?
I mean, yeah, I definitely still love the running back position, but when they asked me to switch or said that I was gonna like switch, I was really just like, whatever the team needs, whatever like the coaches are asking of me, I'm gonna try to do my best at that spot. And I mean, it was kind of scary at first because like I hadn't played receiver in a really long time. I used to play a bit in high school, but like I was always more of a running back. But I mean, I guess it was just the trust that they gave in me and just said, we think that you can do this. And so I was like, okay, like I was excited once I heard. So.
Well, you certainly quite literally took it and ran with it. Jake, some questions for you here. 2-time All Ivy League player, led the league in tackles last year. I will tell you that we were covering I guess it was the Princeton game up at your place last year. I remember it started to rain. It wasn't great weather. And I remember saying to the other guys in the booth, look, if you can't see, if you're not sure about a play, chances are you'll be okay if you say Jake Stebbins was in on the tackle. Even if you can't say it, go ahead and say it. You'll probably be okay with that. So you've been a leader on this team. So looking at it from the defensive perspective here, and again, looking back at last year and looking forward to this year, what do you say to your defensive teammates about what the defense needs to be better at this year?
Absolutely. I think one thing, just defense in general, it comes down to attitude, mentality, and most of all, discipline. And that's one thing that we were, we had lapses on, and we were lacking a little bit last year, was just discipline. Defense, we don't get to tell the offense what to do. We don't get to tell the receivers what to run, and the quarterback where to throw it. We have to react. And we have to do our job no matter what comes at us. And I think that's one thing that we've really been focusing on this offseason and coming into camp, is just being disciplined and doing our job and having that hard nose, get the job done mentality and attitude. It's definitely something that we've been working on.
Coming in, and you'll get it started a little bit later this week. And Coach talked about the notion of, the quality of backups, the quality of younger players or newer players. Don't even have to be younger players, but newer players getting more playing time here. Throughout the course of the off season, what's been your reaction to the newer players and how they're approaching their roles?
Amazing. I've really been impressed with a lot of the younger guys and the newer guys that are coming up, kind of how they embrace their role. Again, obviously I work most with the defense, but just how they embrace their role, and whether it is a backup or a rotational or a starter, just the mentality that they bring in, that, this is what I'm doing and this is how I can help the team with it. Just how they embrace that, I've really been impressed with by everyone.
A question by one of our media members, Harrison Brown Russo, who's from Total Sports Live, is with us and has indicated that there's a question here. So Harrison, why don't you jump right in?
Hey, thanks, Jack. Yeah, this question's for Thomas. I wanted to ask you about Jamison, one of your guys' quarterbacks, someone that you played with in high school back at Harvard Westlake. What have you seen from him as a quarterback over the years?
I've seen him since like he was 14, 15 years old, and he's always been someone that can make plays, which is definitely awesome to have, especially because usually when you're thinking of the quarterback position, you're thinking of somebody that drops back and can just throw the ball around the field. But I mean, it's always nice to be able to have someone that can use their legs around the pocket and extend plays. I mean, I've also seen him like just grow up and just become more mature as a person. And that's been great to see too. He's a great kid, so I'm excited for this year.
Harrison, you good?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Jack.
Coach, let me sort of reflect on that a little bit, because again, the game that we were doing, you saw him come in as your quarterback, and there were flashes. There were clearly flashes of the ability to do a lot of things on the field. How do you see him evolving into this season?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great example, right? I mean, he's a true freshman. When he prepped the year at Air Force, but he's a true freshman on a team with 51 seniors, and he took advantage of the opportunity he had. And absolutely, when he has the ball in his hands, you think good things are going to happen because he shows you that it does. And so, all I would say about him offensively is the ball's going to be in his hand.
Let me, Coach, last question for you here before we wrap up this segment. We got a couple minutes, and I know that the notion of mental health of certainly students and student athletes in the forefront of a lot of discussions recently. And you've been working with the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Why your involvement with that, and why do you think it's so important in your role as a college head football coach?
I was honored to join NAMI's the Finger Lake chapter board of directors this summer. I think mental health is an issue that is really something that's a big issue for all of us, but particularly student athletes in the Ivy League. They have a lot of demands. They're usually very motivated, self-starting type of kids. They can put a lot of pressure on themselves. And typically, I don't think it's something that sometimes people feel like it's okay to talk about. And to be able to normalize that, I married a therapist. I've gone to a therapist for 10 years. It's part of my well-being. It's part of my health. And so to try to use the platform I have to normalize that, I'm excited to do. I haven't announced this to the team yet. We have our first meeting tomorrow, but it's actually College Football Mental Health Week, the week we play Harvard. You're going to call that game, Jack. And so there's the Linsky Foundation. They have College Football Mental Health Week, and the NAMI Finger Lakes, the group I'm associated with. We're going to drum up a lot of awareness and support that week. Wear some decals on our helmets. We have a local bank that's going to partner and help us raise money for mental health awareness. So maybe we can talk later on about some pub you can put on that game. But I think it's something that's really important.
And I think it's very important, as you mentioned, that it be viewed as not some sort of extraordinary effort that you have to make, but as part of your health and well-being. The same way you take care of your body, you take care of your mind. And I think, Coach, as you said, what's so important is to remove stigmas, to make sure that people understand. I did a story when I was doing a story for 60 Minutes, and it was about a wounded warrior, a special forces guy, horrible physical wounds. And he talked about the fact that he was all in, literally the day he got into the hospital doing his rehab physically, and yet he felt this stigma about saying to people, I need to deal with my mental health and well-being first. And he talked about how for warriors, for athletes, that's so important to get past that stigma. Yes?
Could not agree with you more.
Yeah. Well, good for you on that. Guys, you got a great guy leading you as a head coach here for a lot of reasons, and he knows he's got some fabulous student athletes on his team. Scheduling real quick for you. Cornell opens its season on the road against VMI on Saturday, September 7th at 1:30 p.m. And Coach, as you noted on Friday, October 7th, Harvard's coming up to your place to play, and ESPN will be there. So we'll look forward to seeing you all. Jake, Thomas, both of you, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Good luck to both of you this season. And Coach, always a pleasure to talk with you. Good luck to you also.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Appreciate it.
All right, you all be well now.
Thank you.
All right, as we move on from the folks at Cornell, we're going to pick up with the folks from Dartmouth. And we're going to be joined here by head coach Buddy Stevens, along with senior defensive lineman Shane Cokes and senior quarterback Nick Howard. So let's get everybody set up here. I think we have Coach Stevens joining us. We got Nick Howard joining us. And let's get everybody situated here and we can start our conversation. We're seeing Nick getting situated. We're seeing Shane here now. And in a moment, hopefully we'll have Coach Stevens and we will be ready to roll.
Jack, sorry about that.
There we go.
Technologically challenged.
You don't have to say that to me. I've done television for 35 years. I still have no idea how it works. I wait for a red light to go on, and I know that's the sign for me to start talking. If I have to do anything more than that, it is indeed a problem. Coach, welcome. Always good to see you.
Thanks, Jack. Hopefully you had a great summer. We're looking forward to the fall.
Indeed we are. And Nick Howard, Shane Coates, welcome to both of you, gentlemen. We'll be with you in a second and share some thoughts with you. But Coach, let me start with you here as we're heading into this 2022 season. Give us some thoughts that you have about what's coming up here.
Well, excited about our team. Obviously, the COVID period and kind of the evolution of your practice schedules and the training and the guys on campus, off campus, virtual. It's nice to kind of settle back into somewhat of a normal routine. We do have a sophomore summer, so we had a good number of our sophomores on campus. Attitude was tremendous. A lot of our older guys opted to come back a little bit early and train, but the correspondence across the country is you guys are excited. Obviously, we had some success last year. We've graduated a good number of players, and we do that every year. People say, well, you lost a lot. Well, there's guys, people didn't know their name last year. They learned it. And we have guys in our program that people haven't seen a bunch. They'll learn about them as we go forward. But we believe we have some talent. I think we have great leadership and excited to get the thing rolling.
Let's talk a little bit about that idea of moving into this new season here. As you mentioned, an outstanding season last year, right? 9-1, share of the Ivy titles, had such a great run the last decade or so of success up at Dartmouth. So as a head coach, coming off of an exceptional season, a 9-1 season, how do you guard against the notion of either maybe a sense of entitlement where players are saying, hey, we do this all the time now at Dartmouth, or a sense that, yeah, we were really good last year, so we're probably going to be really good this year. Maybe don't have to work that hard at. I would think that would be kind of a delightful dilemma for a head coach to have, to deal with success on a regular basis. But how do you deal with it?
Well, people say it historically, it's hard to get there. It's harder to stay there. And the mindset of our players has got to be what happened last year. That's ancient history. And a lot of guys that were part of it are no longer there. This is a new chapter, a new team, a new attitude, new leadership. And we have to work hard. When you have success, people they kind of check that schedule. And that's the team, we've got to beat this year. And so you have to be aware of that. And the biggest thing is we have things to prove to ourselves. How good can we be individually as a unit, offense and defense, special teams, as a team? And one of the things we've been blessed with, I think we play very well as we play team football. Offense, defense, special teams, they complement each other. Tremendous unselfishness. We play a lot of players. So though we graduate a good number, we have a lot of guys that have played a fair amount of football for us. So it's you don't look back. Nobody does. It's what's coming forward, and we've got a lot to prepare for.
I think one of the reasons that good head coaches are good head coaches is that they can look at a 9-1 season and still see what needs to get better, specifically what needs to be improved on. So if you look back at last year and then project to this year, and you get started, you've been able to work during the summer, but you get started for real this week. What are the types of things that you'll say to your team need to get better at to improve this season?
Well, as always, all facets of the game, but from an offensive standpoint, our offensive line, we need to gel. We'll have some new faces up front. It being a physical team, that's been somewhat of a hallmark of our program through the years. Young guys, they got to step up and play physical football. We have some experience at the wide receiver position, the quarterback spot and the running back spots. Offensive line, I mean, you guys are the key. We got to make this thing go. The back end and the perimeter guys, they've got to perform at a higher level than they did a year ago. A year older, a year wiser, a year more experienced. We have good competition at most positions offensively. So it's kind of this steel sharpened steel type of mindset. Tight end position, graduated a couple of good guys. And so that's a little bit up in the air. Joe Kramer will come back, and he's a seasoned player, but some of our younger talent needs to step up and perform. On the defensive side, we've got some great leadership there and some very talented guys. Shane is on today and tremendous potential, surrounded by some guys who can play as well, putting pressure on a quarterback. And that's going to be absolutely critical for us. Who's that dominant rush guy? The linebacking core, a little bit untested. Joe Heffernan will be back. He cleaned up last year for us, did a nice job. But some of the new guys, Macklin Ayers, Danny Cronin, stepping up and performing well. The back end folks, Quentin Arello is not here, one of our captains, very, very solid football player, played a lot of football for us. We get some depth and experience in the back end, and those guys all have to gel together. But it is every year, as you know, the personality of the defense, the personality of the offense, the personality of the team. But I like the team. I like the personality. I like the work ethic. And we'll be excited to get these guys together and start on a new campaign.
Nick, let me bring you into the conversation if I can. You were part of an extraordinary quarterback rotation last year. I say extraordinary because oftentimes you'll hear sort of the conventional, if there is such a thing, wisdom in football, where you hear people say, well, if you're playing two quarterbacks, it's because you don't really have one real quarterback leader. Dartmouth last year had playing two quarterbacks and ended up being the first and second team all Ivy quarterbacks. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen before, Coach. I don't know if you have or not, but I've been around the game for a lot of years. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where you have such talented players who are able, and the coach is able to figure out how to make it work, and yet they're both recognized, again, as the first and second team all Ivy quarterbacks. So this year, now, coming into it, you're talking about, okay, now it's Derek Kyler has graduated. It's kind of being handed off to you. What changes in your mentality and your thought process as you prepare for a game and as you're invested in the game with this different scenario, or probably different scenario this year?
Well, I think the first thing that changes comes in overall preparation, and that started at the end of last season. There's a lot more things that I'm going to be asked to do this season, which I'm incredibly excited about. I feel very confident in my ability to do those things. But just looking at the role that I'm looking to take on in the team, it definitely has some facets that were absent from the game, my game last year, because Derek Kyler did those things so extremely well. So there definitely are some things that come in the form of specifically what I'm watching on film, some of the different drills that I've began to really incorporate in a lot of my workouts. But just minor details and taking a lot of information that Derek and Jared Gerbino before him passed down to me, and just trying to put forth the best performance I'm able to every week. I
saw and heard people when they were referencing to the situation last year, and I think this is entirely inaccurate, but I saw and heard that they would refer to Derek as the thrower and you as the runner. And I say it was inaccurate because, again, I covered a couple of your games, and that was just not so. Your ability to throw the ball was I think, much better than a lot of people assumed for some reason. Did that bother you at all, the notion of you're the runner coming in? How do you deal with that mentally as an athlete?
Last year, I really chose to embrace it. Obviously, the majority of my snaps were running the ball. Again, I'm very confident in my ability to throw the ball, and Derek was an extremely capable player as well. So I think we complemented each other really well. I think the thing that I really enjoy embracing is that half of our team and people back home and all over still call me a linebacker. So I take that to heart in a good way, and I embrace that mentality. I try and carry that in the weight room, in meetings, hanging out. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. And I think that's a lot of the other guys and the coaching staff too find it entertaining and get a lot of energy out of it.
It's funny. I remember saying that on the air, talking about the notion of you play with the mentality of a linebacker. I think I even said at one point in time, you know, if I'm back in my playing days and I'm sort of back in a safety position and I see a 220-pound, really good running quarterback who thinks he's a linebacker still coming at me, and I'm the last guy there between him and the end zone, I'm not that thrilled about that. I think I even talked to Coach Stevens about the fact that you were a shot putter, right? In your high school career. I'm correct about that, right?
You are correct. Yeah, I was definitely the skinniest one, but I went up there and competed.
Yeah, not so sure. I said to Coach, how many times you've had an all-Ivy quarterback who was also a shot putter in high school, and he had some. He agreed with me on that. Hey Shane, let me talk to you a little bit about what's going on here. One of the hallmarks of Dartmouth football has been extraordinary defense. When I say extraordinary, I mean nationally ranked defense for a lot of years recently. And it's hard, you know, to have that kind of identity year in and year out when you're having, as Coach mentioned, look, you know, it's a great school, Dartmouth, and people are coming there and then they're graduating, and some of them are going to get a shot in the league. Others are going up to great professions and business opportunities. But you have people coming in and out. And yet the defense has maintained that consistently extraordinarily high level. How do you think that happens?
I mean, I would say it's just tradition built on from every year. I mean, starting off when I got there with Jackson Perry, Jack Trainer, Nigel, Isaiah Swan, just continuing every year to build on that and to keep that same tradition mentality going, of being a physical defense, as Coach said, and being sound technically in all positions everywhere. No matter if it's a young guy coming in next year, someone with 3 years, everyone's ready to play and everyone's built for it through the tradition and learning from each other.
When you look at last year's accomplishments and you're now projecting into this year, and now, you know, you're certainly in a leadership role and you have, you know, both younger players coming in, newer players, maybe players who didn't play as many snaps in the past coming in. What do you see needs to be done? And what might you say to these other players as a leader here that needs to be done in order for Dartmouth to stay in that lofty position as a nationally ranked defensive unit?
I would say, I mean, just like every year, don't let it go to your head. I mean, keep the same thing going. I mean, listen to all their guys, focus on the small things, little things, continue to be technically sound, continue to study film, just continue to do all the things that put us in the position we are now to keep us in that national rank position.
Let me bring in Benjamin Rosenberg from Valley News, who has a question for you folks. Benjamin, you with us?
I am. Yeah, thanks. I'll start with you, Coach. Yeah, you mentioned the offensive line there as a position group that needs to step up and improve. You only have one starter returning there. What have you seen from them over the summer, the guys who have been here, and who's really made a strong showing?
Well, Ben, thanks for joining in. Zach Lehman has really done a nice job for us. Will be a fifth-year guy for us, and was very, very productive last year. And with kind of a lack of senior leadership up front, he's really kind of filled the void. And he was taking classes this summer, done a real nice job. Michael Flores, who's been a little bit nicked during the course of his career, really had a very good spring for us. Adam Will, again, untested guy, but he had a good spring for us. Nick Schwitzgable, who's played a fair amount of football for us. We think he can be a very, very solid, very dominant lineman in this league. Thomas Hartnett, another guy, very gifted athletically. And Konstantin Spork, a young man from Germany. And those guys all kind of mesh together. Keith Clark does as fine a job as anyone I've ever had on staff. And schematically, Kevin Daft does a great job kind of mixing and matching. But you know, it's untested because a lot of those guys just haven't seen a whole lot of time. But I think we have potential. And to Shane's point, there is a little bit of a tradition, and the guys, they want to continue and carry that forward. So it's questions to be answered, but I think we have guys that can answer those questions.
Yeah, and then defensively, same idea. Just one returning starter at each of the three levels. Are there some position battles forming there, or again, who have you really?
The defensive line, obviously, Shane Cokes has been a very, very consistent for us. Luca DeLeo, Bobby Jefferson played well for us. Alex Schmidt is another guy. All guys that have played. Jalen Rainey, Hank Canez, Charlie Luce. So guys that you won't hear a lot of, but they've been very, very consistent for us. And I think one of the blessings we have, Dwayne Brooks does a great job inside, is meshing and maxing talents. So we put our best collective group together in a pass rush situation, a rundown situation, and then we keep our guys fresh. And I said it earlier, unselfishness. That's really something that's special, I think, about this team. People all are assigned roles and they accept the role. They may want to change the role and performance will dictate that, but they're content, as Nick had mentioned, the quarterback position. Rather than come in and say, well, I think I should be playing more, it's, hey, man, we're doing a great job with what? And that's reciprocated across the board. But the defensive front, I feel we've got some depth, some talent, a couple of young guys. Josiah Green has the ability to come in and help us a little bit. And some guys can run, Darryl Porter. So there's always people that are kind of pushing a little bit. And under the guidance of people like Shane, they'll mature and nurture those guys. So we've got decent depth at the position.
Yeah, sounds great. And then could I get a couple questions in for Nick and Shane?
Absolutely.
All right, Nick, I know you were at the Manning Passing Academy this year. Obviously, Coach Stevens is high up in that. What was your experience like there? What did you take away from it?
I had an incredible experience at MPA, thanks to the Manning family, as well as Coach T and Mrs. Stevens. They absolutely run an amazing camp. It was just all around a really special experience, getting to interact with a bunch of young athletes who wanted to improve themselves from the middle school and high school level, as well as interacting with the other college quarterbacks that were there. It's such a crazy thing to go from watching Bryce Young and Stetson Bennett on TV on Saturday nights before our season starts or later in the postseason to all of a sudden you're hanging out with them and coaching football with them. So it's just such a cool and unique experience. And I took away some memories that I'm going to hold on for a lifetime.
Yeah, thanks so much. And then Shane, like I was asking Coach, you're one of just 3 returning starters on the defense, the only one on the D line. So what responsibilities do you feel to get some of the younger guys up to speed on that in that position group?
I think it just goes back to making sure they're all informed on what to do, continue to understand what's gotten us there and what's made us that nationally ranked defense, and making sure that they understand that and they continue to push that forward. Just teaching them things, whether it be from Coach Brooks, Coach Dobes, continue to make sure everyone follows in line and just listen and keep us in the same direction that we've been going in.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
And thank you. Coach, last question to you as we wrap up here. We hear oftentimes coaches talk about player-led teams. And now you've had a wonderful and a long tenure at Dartmouth, where you started as a player, you coached there for a while, left, came back, have had great success here. How important is that to you as a coach? That certainly, as you said, your coaches are essential. I know personally Keith Clark and Dwayne Brooks, and I know how good they are, and you mentioned that, and your other coaches are outstanding, certainly. But how important is it to you as a head coach that you have player-led teams?
Well, I think it's critical. You can do so much as a coach. You kind of get guys lined up, but when it's important to them, they're passionate about this personal success and collective success that they have. Our guys take an awful lot of pride in representing themselves, their families, certainly Dartmouth College and our football program. And I think that pride it spills into tremendous dedication. And nobody's taken the easy road. And the nice thing, player-led, is players won't let players slide. They hold each other accountable. They will be direct. They will be candid. They will be honest with guys, as opposed to, he's a friend of mine, I'm not going to say anything. If someone's not, pulling their weight, they're going to be called out by their teammates. And I think the most successful programs that exists, where the culture is such that we have an expectation, and every one of us is going to make sure each one of us adheres to the standards that have been set. So it's a source of pride. Certainly, it's always okay. We still got it going, and the players prove that, and you see that through the off-season performance, the summer work that they do. And really the excitement when they return on Thursday, just to see the enthusiasm they have to, hey, let's get this thing going again.
Well, it'll be fun to see Dartmouth get things going again this season. Some scheduling notes real quick. So Big Green welcomes Valparaiso to Hanover on September 17th. Kickoff at 1:30 p.m. And then ESPN is going to be up there on Friday, September 30th as Penn comes to visit. So Nick and Shane, thanks so much for both of you. Good luck this season. Look forward to watching you. Coach, it's always a pleasure talking with you. We look forward to seeing you also. You all be well now.
Jack, enjoy the rest of your summer, Jack. Take care. Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, move on from Dartmouth and head down the road a little bit in New England to Harvard to chat with some of the Harvard folks. And as we get set up here, we're going to be joined by Harvard head coach Tim Murphy, along with running back Aiden Bourget and defensive lineman Truman Jones. So let's see if we can get everybody set up here so that they can join us. I think we've got Truman almost with us here. Coach Murphy just about with us also, and Aiden Bourget also joining. All right, gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Coach, let me start with you. Always good to see you.
Same here, Jack. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I saw that it's your 29th season coming up, and I thought, boy, that makes me feel old. I can't imagine how old it makes you feel, but certainly it makes the Harvard folks feel very happy with the extraordinary success that you've had there for those 29 years. So congratulations as you continue your record there. Again, good to see you. Let me ask you to start off, and then I'll get to Aiden and Truman with some thoughts from them. But let me ask you, Coach, to start off with some thoughts about what you're looking forward to coming into the 2020 season.
Well, I think the very simplistic answer, Jack, is just looking forward to playing football. The year goes by in a blur, but there's so many different facets of it. I love going into the weight room with the players. We're there every morning early and, love that experience because it's a brand new team. The seniors have graduated. This is in January, February, March. Love going through spring football. Kids get a bit of a break. We get a small bit of a break, but we're all still focused in training. And, now, getting ready for the season, I think we're a lot like our kids. We can't wait to get going. It's exciting. And when it stops being exciting, I'll find a new job. But yeah, this time of year, it's always very exciting just to get back into being a team.
I don't think the Harvard folks have any anticipation of you ever getting a new job and leaving this place. And I'm sure they want you there for a whole lot of reasons. Let's talk a little bit about coming into the season, right? Had an exceptional year last year, an 8-2 record. I know there was the contested game with Princeton, but that's fast. We don't need to talk about that now. I want to talk about moving forward. So, and you've had this, and this is just I think a result of the great success you've had at Harvard, and that is moving from one successful season to a new season. That'll bring new players and new faces. And, I think fans like to think, well, you were great last year. Of course, you're going to be great this year. Coming into this season, what do you think Harvard needs to get better at on the heels of last season?
Well, I think quite honestly, everything. And obviously you're going to have priorities, Jack. And, with us and with me, everywhere I've ever been, it all starts with defense. And for many years, I called the plays and I still coach a position. But the reality is, I think at any level, it all starts with defense. And if you can play great defense, you're going to be in every game. And that certainly was just one of the things that allowed us to only get beat once last year. We played really great and consistent defense. The things we need to get better at, some are to be determined, Jack, because we certainly haven't had a practice yet. But I think the reality is we need to take the next step as an offense. We had somewhat of a unique and unusual situation last year where we actually had 3 different quarterbacks win multiple games. Coming into the season, Charlie Dean was a starter. He got hurt fourth game into it. We went with a kid who had a lot of experience for us. Jake did a great job. And then I made the decision to insert a kid who was our 3rd string quarterback for the last 3 games. And, the kid under the circumstances and our team did a really great job, beating some really good football teams down the stretch. None of the games easy. Columbia, Penn, and Yale. So, we're not ready to name a starting quarterback yet. I'm not quite in that position, and we'll go through the process. But suffice it to say, between Charlie Dean and Luke Emge, we expect to be talented, and we expect to be relatively deep at the quarterback position. That's our expectations.
Let me talk about that a little bit, because I know you probably heard it, and in talking to Harvard fans, former Harvard players, I've heard it. I don't know if it's a fair assessment of the position, but as we know, and maybe in some way you're the victim of this extraordinary success, in the last 15 years, maybe back 20 years or so, just about every Harvard starting quarterback ended up being an all Ivy League player, and some of them ended up being players of the year. It was just a fascinating progression. You'd have somebody start for 2 years, they'd be great. Somebody else would step in, they'd start for 2 years, they'd be great. And what you've heard is, and I ask for your assessment, I've heard people say, yes, you've had good quarterback play the last few seasons, but not at the level that the Harvard, let's call them the community or the program, had been used to. Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
I think statistically it probably is, Jack, but if you've got a great offensive line and you've got great running backs and you can run the football, suffice it to say it's easier to throw the football. If you've got that and you've also got elite receivers, it's a lot easier. I think of it as a team thing, rather than just a quarterback thing. We've got to do all of those things better to make it easy on the quarterback. But I do believe we have the people in place to accomplish that.
Speaking of the people in place to accomplish it, let me bring Truman and Aiden into the conversation here if we can. And Truman, let me start with you first. And the first question I want to ask is about the notion of being named captain of the team. All right. I played at Yale. It's the same at Yale as it is at Harvard. There is one captain and chosen by the team. And in many ways, I think that could make it more meaningful. What was your reaction, your personal reaction, when your teammate said, you're the guy for us this year?
Yeah, for me, it was a tremendous honor just in thinking about when I first came in as a freshman and how everyone on the team was a leader and was a captain at their respective high schools. And so it's really an honor to be named kind of a captain of captains. I feel like a hallmark of the Harvard team is the quality of men and the character of men that we recruit. And so to be named captain was truly an honor, and made me appreciate the people that have been around and how they've elevated me and made me grow as a man and as a person and as a football player.
An interesting comment you use, the captain of captains, because my guess, Coach, you might help me with this. My guess is probably 60, 70, maybe a higher percentage of the guys that are on your team were captains of their high school team. Coach,
that would be very accurate, Jack.
Yeah. So to see Truman, as you said, being named a captain of captains is just an extraordinary testimonial, I think, to you. Let's talk now about the defense. So last year's defense, and I don't think it got as much attention as it should have. Last year's Harvard defense was spectacular. I mean, it held the rushing defense 64 yards a game. I mean, that to me that's what most team average in a quarter of a game, or at least a half in a game. For the defense to hold a 10-game schedule to that and be ranked in the top 10 nationally in so many other categories just goes to show what a spectacular season it was for you. How do you now, as the defensive leader and the captain of the team, how do you go into this 2022 season and keep that defensive momentum going?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the mentality, which comes from our defensive coordinator, Coach Larkey, and keeping the defense simple enough that we're able to play fast, but also complicated to keep offenses on their toes and add some variety and add some variability. I think between linebackers and defensive line, we have great communication and are always on the same page to understand when we can play off of each other. And I think that has allowed us to play fast, but also play controlled and understand everyone's responsibilities.
How about bringing in now new players to the defense who are going to have either their younger players who just get their first opportunity, or maybe players that have been there for a while but just going to get their chances now to get more meaningful snaps? How do you bring them along and make sure that they become part of this, this fabric of success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it really comes from, them being in the meeting rooms with us and in the weight room and seeing the work ethic of the defense and of the D-line specifically, and understanding kind of the standard that we hold ourselves to, whether that's the tempo of practice and the physicality of practice. All these things are learned over time after spending practice and time with us. So we hope that kind of by leading by example and also explaining and showing the statistics of what we did last season, that they'll understand the standard that this defensive line and defense is held to.
Aiden, let's talk a little bit with you about the offensive side of the ball and the running back position. We've seen a couple of scenarios here in the Ivy League where you've had people splitting time at a position that usually you tend to think of just one player holding it down. We saw it last year with Dartmouth, with two quarterbacks who ended up being first and second team all Ivy splitting time. We saw it last year with your Harvard situation, yourself and Aaron Champlin, just who was in an NFL camp right now. But I will tell you, having covered a couple of your games here, sometimes when you're watching a sharing of positions, you can delineate, all right, this person's the sort of the number one, and this is the 1A. You didn't get that watching the two of you carry the ball last year. Anybody who didn't know about it would look at each of you and say, oh, my, that's a fabulous football player. Going into this season, with the odds are probably not sharing as many snaps, how do you approach it differently at all, or how do you approach it?
I think it's mainly within the mentality and kind of the confidence of our offense moving forward. I think, we have pieces all around. It's not just about the running back. It's about our offensive line. It's about our quarterback play, our wide receivers as well. So kind of the mentality with that is that we're all going to be better. With an increased workload and increased carries, that just means you have to work harder in the off season and expect more of yourself in season. And so with that being said, our whole offense will be expecting more of ourselves for this entire season.
Let me bring in some of our media members here. We got some questions. And the first one is going to come from Zach McKinnell, who's from the Blue Bloods. So Zach, please jump in here. Hold on, it might be a written question. Let's see if we can get it. And then Alex Vespoli is going to be next. Alex, stay with me for a moment, if you will. Let me see the question that Zach had, if we can. Question for Coach Murphy. Jordan Hill, major loss at the linebacker spot. Can you speak to the rest of the question? Why don't we just speak to that? Major loss, and then what you anticipate in terms of who steps in and picks up that load, if you will.
Well, Jordan Hill, Jack, as you know, was a special player. I think he might have been, via COVID, the first 6-year player in Ivy League history. He obviously signed an NFL contract coming out of college. Was an unbelievable leader, day in, day out, for a couple of years, basically. So, again, you don't just replace the Jordan Hills of the world. But if you look at our defense altogether, we're really bullish on our defense. It all starts with the guys up front, with Nate Leskovic and Truman Jones at defensive end, probably as good a group as we've had in a while. You throw in Thor Griffith, who was really a big surprise, no pun intended, 6'2", 300-pound, very athletic kid who may have led the league in tackles for a loss last year. And, we're going to be good up front. We need to develop players. We need to develop depth at that, but we're going to be a good group. And the same on the back end. We've got 3 or 4 starters back in the secondary with Alex Washington and Khalil Dawsey at corners, with guys like James Herring at safety. But the linebacker core is going to be relative newbies. Now, they've all been in this program. They've been in the program a while, and, replacing a guy like Jordan Hill is challenging, and others. Between Jack McGowan, outside linebacker, and then Jake Brown and Matt Hudson inside, I really think it's going to be a very good group. Only time will tell, but with the guys up front, with a really outstanding secondary on the back end, I think we have a chance to be another really outstanding defensive unit.
And you talk about Jordan Hill, if there was going to be a 6-year player, I suspect just about every other team in the league was saying, why does it have to be Jordan Hill that we have to play for 6 years in a row? Fabulous. And as you said, just a spectacular leader and a real gentleman and a compelling personality when we got to meet him here. Alex Vespoli from the Ivy League on ESPN has a question. Alex, jump in.
I have questions for both Aiden and Truman. I'll start with Aiden. Coaches have told us that you're really a quiet, unassuming guy off the field, but obviously you make your presence known on the field with a really physical, punishing style of play. So how do those two seemingly disparate characteristics mix for you? Do you feel like you're a different guy when the pads and helmet go on, or maybe are you not as quiet and unassuming as your coaches tell us you are?
I think there's a little bit of a switch that you have to flip when you play a football game. I think going onto the field and kind of becoming the football player version of yourself is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit, chip on the shoulder. You have something to prove. But being that way on the football field, I think, is what allows a lot of us to be a little bit more relaxed and at ease when we're off the field. So I'm a guy that likes to, typically stay in, not do too much. But on the field, definitely just like to have that mentality of being a punisher and just as the rest of our team does.
And Truman, as someone who didn't start playing football until you were relatively late, I think maybe a sophomore in high school, and coaches said you came into Harvard a little bit raw. How have you developed the confidence in yourself to not only become a tremendous football player, but also become recognized as a leader by your teammates to serve as Harvard captain?
Yeah, I think that started really by coming in humble and understanding that I still had a lot to learn from my teammates around me. I remember freshman year kind of being in the meeting room and soaking up everything that I saw older upperclassmen doing and saw older guys doing and saw them doing a lot of things, training, practicing the right way. And so taking their example and adding that to my game and knowing how to work and how to practice really helped me get to the next level, as well as just kind of being able to put my head down and work and get through some difficult times and stay with the team and hold the team first.
Alex, that good?
Yes, thank you, Jack.
All right, good. Griffin Wong from the Crimson. Let's see if we can get Griffin in. If not, I may well have the question. So Griffin, are you there?
Yeah.
Great.
So last week, the Ivy League announced that in the preseason poll, you were deemed conference co-favorites along with Dartmouth. You also led the conference in preseason all Ivy honorees. What was your reaction to that news? And with expectations seemingly higher this year, do you feel any additional pressures compared to last year?
Excuse me, Griffin, is this for me?
I guess any of you can answer this question.
Well, for my 2 cents, you don't put a lot of time and effort into where you're picked. If I'm not mistaken, last year, I think we were picked 4th or 5th, and we only got beat 1 time. So it's not something personally I lose a lot of sleep over. Truman?
Yeah, I agree in that these kind of rankings and things that come out preseason, we try not to pay a lot of attention to it because we know we have in the locker room and know the players and guys that we have on our side. It's nice to see that recognized, but it doesn't mean much as we still have a lot of work to do.
Aiden, how about you? How do you all deal with that?
I agree. I think the biggest thing for us is, like Truman said, knowing what we have in our locker room and upholding a standard of excellence. And that's something that we keep hold of year round. So by the time the polls come out with who they think will be, the best teams in the Ivy League and stuff like that, that's our expectation in the winter and in the spring to practice like it so we can play like it.
Last question for you, Coach, in coming in the season, and it has to do with the Friday night games, right? And I know Harvard had done them, had first school to start doing them, I think, even before the ESPN package. I was up there last year when Brown came into your building on a Friday night, and I was amazed at the crowd. I mean, the Harvard side was packed, and this is an early season game. Harvard side was packed. The visiting ground side, you could fair to say that was packed too. A lot of students were out there. What do you think about this notion of the Friday night games and the energy it generates?
I think it's great, Jack, in this context. For whatever reason, so many high school kids, grew up Friday night lights. And to have the opportunity to do that in a Friday night game is a little bit cooler, I think, for the student athletes and for the students. I think there's a social aspect to it. And the bottom line is we enjoy doing it. We'll have, I think, 3 or 4 of those this year. And, whether it's Saturday at 1 p.m. or whether it's Friday night at 7 p.m., we're going to be ready to play. But it's been a very positive thing on our campus for sure.
Yeah. Last question for you, Coach, and that is this. You've got Yale at home this year. It's the first time in 6 years that Yale will be playing in Harvard Stadium. That means your guys have never played Yale in Harvard Stadium. You go back to, I guess it was 2016, and then you had the game in Fenway Park because there were renovations being done. Then you were at Yale. Then COVID season went away. Then it was back at Yale. Now you're finally going to get Yale in Harvard Stadium. How important is that?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, when he originally pitched the Fenway thing, I'll be honest enough to say that I said, you're going to have to get me to Fenway kicking and screaming because we're not going to lose a home game in the stadium, in Harvard Stadium. Now, it ended up being unbelievable, way beyond all our expectations. So we'll go back to Fenway again. And then when someone told me the mathematics of, oh, by the way, you're going back to Yale in 2021, I said, what do you mean? So yeah, it's going to be great to have it at home. What I'm told is all the tickets for Harvard side have sold out in 3 days. So that gives you an idea of, I think, the appetite to get back in Harvard Stadium for the Harvard Yale game. I think it's going to be rocking. I know that Yale tickets will be no different, but we have a long way to go, a short time to get there, but it'll be really nice playing the game in Harvard Stadium for sure, Jack.
Yeah, it's a great play. I love playing in Harvard Stadium, although I didn't especially enjoy losing to Harvard in Harvard Stadium. Different feeling, but it's just a great building. It's such a great history and tradition. So I'm delighted. As a former Yale player, I'm actually thrilled to be going up to Harvard for the game this year. So just some scheduling notes then for all of you. Harvard, actually the first team to get on the field this season. You're open up against Merrimack under the lights, Harvard Stadium, 7 p.m. on Friday, September 16th. And on the ESPN package, you can get to see Harvard 3 times. And that's going to be fun certainly for the Harvard fans and those that might not be when they get a chance to see the quality of football that's being played in the league and specifically by Harvard. So October 7th, you're going to be up at Cornell. October 21st, Princeton's coming into your building. And as we said before, November 19th, Yale, the game taking place in Harvard Stadium. So Aiden Truman, nice to meet you all. You all be well. Good luck to you this season. And Coach Murphy, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I'll look forward to seeing you during the year. You all be well now.
Same here, Jack. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right. Our Harvard folks are departing. We're going to bring in the folks from Penn to join us now. And we're going to have head coach Ray Priori, along with linebacker Jake Heimlicher, and offensive lineman Trevor Radosevich. So let's bring them on board here as we get started. See Coach Priori just getting ready to join us. Coach, how are you? Good to see you.
Good, Jack. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. All right, we got Trevor joining us. And in a moment, we should have Jake joining us also. Trevor, you look like you're in a Penn Athletic Museum there with all your backdrops. Liking that look. Good. Jake is with us also. All right. Welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for joining us here on our Ivy League Football Media Day. Coach, I'm going to start with you if I can, as we've been doing with all of the coaches. And that is to just get some thoughts from you as you're looking ahead to the 2022 season.
Sure, Jack. I think it has to go back to optimism right now. I think are coming off of last season. Okay, we're obviously no one in Penn was satisfied. Not what we failed to do on the field, and coaches and players alike. I think we all went into the off season with a focus and a mindset, and with some changes and some adjustments that we made through some things. I think our kids have really worked hard over the off season, through the summertime now, and are, like everybody else on the call, say, real excited to get started.
You mentioned last season, and it was a difficult season. Penn has been so good for so long that when you see a Penn team going 3-7 and 1-6 in the Ivy League, it certainly raises eyebrows. I will say this to you, and I've said it to some of the other coaches, having covered some of your games, that the team, for what it's worth, on the field, the team did not look to me like a 1-6 Ivy record team. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't. Coach Bill Parcells famously said, "You are what your schedule says you are." I don't necessarily, far be it from me to disagree vehemently with a Hall of Fame coach like Coach Parcells, but I think there are times when that's not necessarily so. So looking back at last year and then projecting out to this year, what are you pointing to as a coaching staff that you're saying we need to do better this year so that this becomes a more representative Penn team?
Sure, Jack, that's a great question. I think that you go back and you, as coaches, you always want to rewind the film and go back to the beginning. When we took the field last year against Bucknell, 75% of our team was the first time ever traveling. We were a really, really young team from the start. In the offensive line, just Trevor was returning. So we had one starter on the offensive line. This year, we have 4 starters back, which excites us. In the quarterback situation, John Quinley started the season, got hurt early part, then we made a change with A and C. And so, I guess what I'm saying is, sort of the lessons learned from last year is that it takes time. Success is not a destination; it's a journey. Okay, and I think our kids are really focused on that journey. It started again in the off season. Great job by the 2 gentlemen on the screen now. Our seniors, our leadership council, which is comprised of a bunch of classes, of what we needed to get back done. And it was to that a bit of accountability, okay, that focus, attention to the details. Because your point is, at times, we played very, very well. We just didn't play very, very consistent going through. And I think part of that was growing pains, as we saw as the season went along. And I think some of the adjustments changed and the years of experience coming back. So we did lose some real good players. Prince Emilia's up at Buffalo Bills now. We'll lose him. But we do believe that the guys behind him that got a chance to get on the field had some depth on both sides of the football field. So I think lessons learned from last season hopefully will play dividends moving forward.
You talk about moving forward, developing consistency, developing players. What about the strengths coming into the season? When you're looking at what you have here on your roster, what would you point to and say, all right, this is where I feel pretty comfortable in terms of how we're going to perform?
Sure. I'd say twofold. One is, I think, up in the lines, both offense and defensive line. I'll start there. As I just mentioned earlier, last year, 1 returning starter. This year, 4 guys returning. Gives a young quarterback that had a real good 5 games as he played out the end. I think it's, again, it was on the call here early on, when we have had our best years, okay, it's come with a talented quarterback, okay, Alec Torgerson, Billy Ragone, I go back to Mike Mitchell, and so on and so forth through the years. So that position is so important there. On the flip side, you take it to the defense, Jake and the guys of front, Micah Morris, Joey Slackman, and a bunch of those guys come back in there. With that, surrounding them are some really talented skill players. So I will say, unfortunately, we did get banged up with wide receivers. Negative about that is good players last year got banged up. We returned and got a lot of young guys on the field. So again, it's going to be return on your investment that we went into last year. But what excites me is, again, against our energy, our focus right now. And I think these guys have done a good job of getting us to this point.
How about that quarterback position? And again, you mentioned, as I was going to mention, a litany of exceptional football players in the recent past here. Where do you think you are? Are you ready yet to say, this is our guy and this is what we think it's going to be?
Yeah, I think, Aiden, going through the 5 games that he played last year, I did a real good job. I thought he's made the necessary improvements from being a freshman, just the physical, his body, how he's developed in the offseason to now. His spring ball time was great. I thought he did a real good job of spring ball, and he was here for a large part of the summer training and throwing with his guys, which I think is also getting that sort of feeling and back and forth. I think he's talented. We also have a couple other guys behind him, but I think Aiden, he's done a good job to point, and we're excited about that.
Hey, Trevor, let me ask you to elaborate a little bit on what Coach was talking about here in terms of last year and a dearth of starters, as opposed to this year, where you have so many more guys back who got significant snaps during this season. How does that affect how you think this offensive line is going to look this year?
Yeah, it's obvious when you're putting together an offensive line, you got to look at everybody. You can't just look at one guy and say, "Oh, this guy's a good player," so you can make the whole offensive line good. It's not how it works. It's never how it works. So much offensive line plays chemistry, knowing how the guys are going to play next to you. I've got tremendous faith in my guards that I have next to me. Last year, Ben Hoytink was a great offensive lineman, great guard to play next to. Really made the game a lot easier for me. But yeah, it was tough last year to go on the road first game, and I'm the only returning starter going on the field. So we started a freshman left tackle who played phenomenal the whole season, and expecting extremely big things from him this year, as well as Jack Purcell on the other tackle. Played the whole year with a clubbed hand, so he'll be back to full speed again this year and using that hand as well. But just returning starters is way more valuable in the offensive line than I think in most position groups, and knowing how guys are going to play and what to expect. And, you got your 5 guys and you go into battle with them.
How about, as Coach was mentioning, the evolution of a freshman quarterback? There was a time, it was not that long ago, and back when I played at Yale, when freshmen were not eligible for the varsity. You only got 3 varsity seasons. Coach, you'll remember that, right? So as a freshman, you were not even a factor. You were off on a different field someplace, and every once in a while you'd wander over and scrimmage against the varsity. But here now in our era, you're seeing situations where all of a sudden you get plugged in, and people will say, and Jake, I was a defensive back, so I don't mean to diminish our role here, but people will say, defense, you can plug a guy in, he's an athlete, he's going to play a little. You try and plug in a guy in the offensive line, Trevor, or plug in a freshman to quarterback, that's not so easy. So what did you see in the development? Let's talk about the last couple of games of last year that you think can carry over to next year.
I think with Aiden is he stepped up to the plate into a situation where he didn't know what was going to happen, if he was going to play or not, if he was going to be the starter of the game. I think his first career start, I think, was at Yale on the road. And we go up there and we played him tough. And the kid went out there and he made plays with his legs, made plays with his arm. And we watched the film and we're like, this guy can play. This kid can play with the big dogs. So I think that was something we all realized last season, that this kid he's a player and he's going to go out there and work hard and compete. And what more can you ask for from the quarterback, and to take control and run the offense the way it needs to be done?
Jake, let's talk about the other side of the ball if we can. And Coach mentioned that, lost some quality players, right? Prince Emily in the NFL right now. Brian O'Neill graduated, some really good quality players. You had an excellent season. I know I covered one of the games and was routinely saying that you were in on the tackles. But let's talk about this season now, having lost some leaders, not just in terms of their ability on the field, but I have to believe in terms of their ability in the locker room and during practice and in preparation as leaders. How do you then and some other guys pick up that leadership mantle in terms of performance and the leadership qualities?
Yeah, so losing Prince and Brian are 2 of the big factors on our defense last year, both first team All-Ivy. Also losing Jason McLeod, who was a ball hawk on the outside. But losing those leaderships in the locker room wise, people are starting to step up. Jonathan Melvin is our inside linebacker that's probably going to take over Brian O'Neill's spot. And his voice is starting to be heard. He's starting to do his job, and people are starting to listen and buy into him. As well as with Jason out, Kendrick got hurt last year at Dartmouth, first Ivy League game. And now his voice is starting to be heard. Everyone's just coming back and really just buying into the culture, which is really what it is at the end of the day and how you win.
I'll ask you a specific question similar to what I asked Coach before, and that is this. You were there last year. You were a significant part of that defense. It was not the season that any of you anticipated or hoped for. But as I mentioned before, there was quality on the field there for Penn. It just was not reflected in the final record, one-loss record. What do you think then the defense needs to do coming into this season to make it so that the final one-loss record will more accurately reflect the quality of the players?
Our defense last year, I thought, was a very tough defense that no offense wanted to play against. We talked to some Harvard kids after we played, and they said we were the best defense in the league that we played. So coming through that, transitioning from last year to this year, I would say we have to minimize the big plays. Big plays is what's crucial in winning games. If we minimize those, we're in those ball games. We had 2 big runs against Columbia, big play against Dartmouth, and then outside the conference, Lafayette, they had 1 big play in the, I think, third quarter that lost us the game. So we just need to be consistent throughout the whole game, finish the game, and minimize the big plays.
Let's bring some of our media folks into this. Harrison Brown-Russos from Total Sports Live has a question. Harrison, jump in.
Yeah, thanks. Jake, I wanted to ask you about the defensive line group as a whole, the guys you have up front, always been a strength for Penn. Guys like yourself, Joey Slackman, Michael Morris. Can you just talk about the group you guys have as a whole?
Yeah, the group as we have as a whole, I love them. This is probably, I think, the best D-line that we've had since I've been here in my going to be 5 years now. We've graduated Matty Mack. He was a great player on the outside, but now we bring in Grant Ritzoff. Michael Morris played last year. He was dominant. He's played ever since freshman year, and he's been here all summer grinding. Joey Slackman, a wrestler, and now getting thrown in last year as a football player, first time playing in 3 or 4 years, and he was a backup to Prince Emili. So that's best of both worlds, being a backup to Prince, learning under him, and now everyone moving along together. I think we're going to be a very dominant force on the D-line this year.
Yeah, I'll follow up real quick if I can with Coach Priori, looking at the receiving.
Absolutely. Yep.
You guys lost a few people, Cragen, Starkey, but it's a talented room as a whole. We saw Sterling Stokes making plays at the end of the year. Can you talk about them as a whole, the guys that Aiden will be throwing the ball to?
Absolutely. Well, just to correct you that Starkey, RJ is back. RJ will be joining us, so that is a good thing. We did lose Ryan Cragen there, but you did say Sterling Stokes, which I thought towards the end of the year did get on the field and made some real key plays. Josh Casilli is another player who really came on. Really, he got some time in, but the spring ball, we really like what he did. Lone Howley, another rising senior, we really like what he did in the springtime. So with that, we did have a couple of our slot receivers and those type of things. So I think the overall as a group developed within the schematics that we're trying to get done. I think they got a good, developed new chemistry, got a new different plan on offense. But we do have some good young sophomores, rising sophomores up that we're really excited about. But time will tell with those guys. But I think that we could see some of those guys come to life here as well.
Thanks, guys.
Harrison, thank you. Hey, Coach, let me ask you a question that I posed to some of the other coaches here, and that's the notion of the Friday night games. And, you know, we've done a couple at Penn that I've been able to call. My observation was you seem to get a lot more people in the building, seem to be a lot more of the students attending the games. From your perspective as a coach, what do you think the value has been of these Friday night games?
Well, I think, you got me there?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think the value has been on a number of occasions, a number of things, right? I think crowd size has been great. Excitement on campus is phenomenal. But also, I'd add, it's been great exposure for the league, getting that national exposure. Okay, so we're getting out there. It's being streamed, those games are live and whatnot. I think they aided us in the recruiting battles going across country and trying to get that exposure that way. But again, I just think the Friday night opportunities just give you that time. Again, I know we're on the road and we'll get done with meetings and you're watching the Ivy League games, which is phenomenal to do. But then when you get that opportunity to get out there, I think everybody likes to be set up on that high stage there and get a chance to play. And this year we go up to Dartmouth, which is a whole nother circumstance, driving those 6 hours and Thursday. We'll make the most of it and the best of it as we go.
Trevor and Jake, let me ask you the same question. Trevor, you first. How about as a player getting a chance to, it's a big spotlight. The ESPN folks have said to me over the years, they love the product. They're delighted to see the quality of Ivy League football. They get viewers that are not necessarily Ivy League fans, that are just football fans that also love it. From your perspective as a player, what do you think of it?
I mean, I know high school football, Friday Night Lights. I mean, it's the best thing there is. I mean, you can't trade that high school football experience, knowing everybody in the stands and whatnot. But playing on Friday nights in college is a different thing itself. You're in massive stadium, massive lights, a whole lot of fans on either side, and you get to go out there and play football under the lights. You very rarely get to do that in college, so it's something you look forward to, and you circle it on the schedule a little bit.
Yeah. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, we fell in love with the game playing on Friday night. So bringing that back to the college-wise, I mean, yeah, we only get one a year, which I wish we played more. It's just an amazing experience and something I really look forward to.
Yeah. And again, you're traveling this year, but having been down at Penn for some Friday night games, and Franklin Field, just one of the fabulous venues in all of college football. We know its history and just the physical structure. I remember when I'm a sophomore and running into there, for the first time that I played at Penn, and Penn was the first, and Coach, you might remember this, I'm pretty certain, I know it was the first of the Ivy schools to have the artificial surface. And, artificial surface was pretty new then. So you kind of felt like a pro when you were running into it. And then you come into that building, Franklin Field, which had been the home for the Eagles for so many years. Just great experiences, I think, for everybody there. Well, I want to thank all of you. Let me note your schedule. Coach, you mentioned this, and your season opener is going to be at home, Franklin Field, at 1 p.m. on Saturday, September 17th, when you take on Colgate. And then, as we mentioned, you're going to be up at Dartmouth on Friday night, September 30th. So we'll look forward, Jake and Trevor, to watching you guys on the field, as always. And, Coach, it's always a pleasure to chat with you and to get caught up with you. I look forward to talking to you during the season. You all be well and stay safe and healthy.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Guys, take care now. All right. So as we say goodbye to our friends at Penn, we can welcome our friends from Princeton, just down the road, who are going to join us now. We're going to bring in here head coach Bob Surace, going to join us along with offensive lineman Henry Bird, defensive back Mike Rutland Jr. Let's see if we get them all here. Let's see, Coach is just about with us. All right, Coach, I've got Henry Bird with us also. And we got Mike Rutland joining us. All right, good. So we have an entire Princeton contingent here in their black and orange. Hey, Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jack. How you doing?
I am good. It's always good to chat with you. Thank you so much for being with us here. And our thanks also to both Henry and Mike. And gentlemen, we'll get to you in just a couple of minutes with some thoughts and questions. But Coach, let me, as we had with all of our coaches so far, let me start off by asking you to just give us some of your thoughts heading into this 2022 season.
Yeah, this is the best time of the year, Jack. We get to start this journey and bring, our team and see where we're going to be. And it's exciting. It's, I don't know if the players, when it's 100 degrees, feel the same, but when you get off that practice field and you've accomplished something good at practice, you feel good about yourself. And we get to have a lot of fun. We get to learn, we get to grow, and it really sets the stage for getting ready for Stetson.
Yeah. Let's talk about the transition from last year into this year. And once again, Princeton had an exceptional season last year, 9-1, 6-1 in the Ivies, shared the Ivy League title. You've had a great run. I mean, if you look at it, your 4 titles in the last, 10 years or so, just an exceptional success at Princeton. But my question to you is, and I've asked some of the other coaches this also, as a head coach, how do you guard against, how do you deal? It might sound in some ways silly to other people, but the idea of dealing with success as somehow it's an obstacle for you. But as you know, as a head coach, coming off a great season, that was then. and this is now. So how do you deal with that success as you move into a new season?
Yeah, I think as I've gotten more experienced and older, and football's such an emotional sport. It's an emotional game that you try to just, we'll use the word like neutral thinking, right? And just attack issues and things like that. So the season ends on a Saturday. Sunday, we had a bonfire. Before that bonfire, we have a team meeting. In the first slide lists, we're 0-0. We'll celebrate the bonfire, do those great things in the community, but you start over. You don't carry over the previous year, whether it was good or it wasn't good. And all 8 teams have the same goal. If you asked every single coach on here what your goal is, it's to win the Ivy League title, right? And we all start at the same spot, and we're going to work as hard as we can and prepare as hard as we can to be one of the teams that's, progressing during the year and in that mix, but nothing's given to you. And our guys know that when we go back in the weight room, when we go back to spring ball, when we go to the summer, that you gotta, the years we've won, the team came together and they worked incredibly hard. And I think we have a great group, and I hope it shows up as we get into the season.
Looking ahead then to this season, and again, it might sound a little bit nonsensical when you're coming off a 9-1 season, but looking ahead to it, what do you think you need to do to improve, to make sure that this team is as good and succeeds the way last year's team did?
Yeah, the biggest thing is connectivity, and we lost that with the time away with COVID. And so it really taught us that we really got to work hard. We got to work hard to come together, whether it's in the dining hall, the meeting rooms, the way we practice as position groups, and literally, building a brotherhood where everybody's reaching, Henry will talk about it, I've heard him say to the team about standards, right? He and Mike have these high standards, and we got to get everybody on the same page of this is what our standards are. And most of those are things we control, and the discipline and, accountability and all those things that Mike and Henry are just such a high level with those, that we got to really leave camp feeling good about those things.
Let's talk about the strengths coming into the season, right? Because clearly, again, coming up a 9-1 season, you have a lot of guys coming. You lost a lot of quality players, obviously. But as you look at what you have in this roster, what are some of the strengths that you would point to?
Yeah, I think that, our offensive skill group, our receivers that are returning, tight ends that are returning, especially some guys on the edge, like our tackles are really strong. We have some exciting young running backs that unfortunately got to play a little bit more than we would have wanted when Colin Eady suffered that really brutal injury against Dartmouth. And, credit to them. They did an admirable job filling in and as young players and made progress. Rutland's going to have to hold the fort down on the back end, but there's a lot of guys that saw a lot of time up front on the front seven of defense last year.
You've had a great run of quarterbacks in your tenure here, but interestingly, sort of a rollover of quarterbacks. It's hard to imagine you'd be saying to a coach, okay, you're going to get a new quarterback each year for 5 years. But, oh, by the way, each of them are going to be all Ivy players, and they might be players of the year. I mean, that's a pretty astonishing statistic to have that kind of level of quality. So the next guy up is not just the next guy up. The next guy up becomes a star on his own. What are you looking at coming into this season at that position?
Yeah, well, development's huge. Fortunately, since my early years, and we've built some depth, we've been able to develop quarterbacks in a way that I think is really good, getting them freshman year, putting them on the scout team and letting them grow and learn, playing JV games, things like that, where we didn't have to throw them to the fire. We did that a little bit my early years, and that was tough, right? That was, those were lean times because they weren't quite ready on that. Competition is something that's a core value for us. And no different whether it's the right guard position or it's quarterback, those guys are going to compete. We run a lot of plays. We run a high tempo offense. So even though, Cole Smith took the majority of snaps, Blake Stenstrom's played, and we've been able to develop Joe Hutchinson and Blaine McAllister. And the three of them I thought had terrific springs. Now that we really start to get into it in training camp, we're going to see more defenses, more complicated things. It's going to see who separates themselves. And I was watching NFL Network. I heard Mike Tomlin talk about this. He's going through a battle right now, a quarterback. And it's not just who completes the highest percentage of passes. It's who does the routine things routinely. And then the leadership component, who gets the guys around him. And it was, and Tomlin is, a Hall of Fame coach. It was really, one of those things I wrote down immediately when I heard it.
Let me talk a little bit about what you just mentioned, and that is the development process for players. Because you oftentimes here in terms of recruiting and what coaches need to do, they need to find prospects. They need to basically convince prospects this is the place for them to be, and then they need to develop once they get there. But in this era of college football, in some other areas, basically you don't, patience is not a virtue anymore. I know, I guess, and Coach, you'll appreciate this, and Henry and Mike, you might not remember this, but it wasn't that long ago that not just the Ivy League, but the entire nation didn't let you play varsity as a freshman. You got three varsity seasons, and pretty much that was it. And so there was a development process. So you played on the freshman team as a freshman, as a sophomore. If you got any snaps on the varsity, that was great. And then you hope to start as a junior and senior, right? Coach, you remember that. Nowadays, there's a sense, and especially in that quarterback room, I think, where if you're not playing right away, you're gone. And I understand it, and I'm not being critical of it. I'm just stating that's what the fact is right now. And yet you've been able, Coach, to keep guys for a period of years where they get their shot, but maybe they're not getting their shot till they're a junior, maybe not even till a senior. Why do you think you've been able to do that at Princeton?
Yeah, and I think it's not, I don't think it's just us. I think this league, you have young men playing that are just humble and hardworking. And look, everybody wants to play. There's not a quarterback on our roster from the freshman to the senior that doesn't want to get the first snap and every snap. But, I think that they're great teammates. I think relationships are important, and being able to have those good conversations, right? When I've had to tell a guy, and man, it was close between Kevin and Cole, or Cole and Blake, or Chad Knopf and John Lovett, right? Those were great competitions. Having those conversations with the person who wasn't winning the job were honest, and they were built on long-standing relationships. And those guys wanted to know what they needed to do to be ready that year. And, John Lovett, the undefeated year, Kevin Davidson stepped in and had one heck of a football game. And he doesn't do that if he sulks, if he's not prepared, if he's not ready. And I think we just have people in this league that are valued. And if you can just indulge me on a story, because I was on the phone on Friday with one of our alums who graduated in '93, very significant player, very supportive player. And we had sent him a ring, right? He was, some people that support our program at that level when we win a championship. And, you have a cousin that is in that mode.
I do indeed. And I hear it frequently when it's Princeton beating Yale. And then I go back to him and say, let me think for a second. When I was playing, we beat Princeton 14 years in a row. But go ahead, finish your story here.
And so, back then freshmen didn't play. So they came up and practiced at the end of the year. And, I remember coming up as a 210-pound center, getting my butt kicked, right? He's like, I didn't get it. He didn't get we won the championship my senior year. He's like, that's the year I got my butt kicked practicing against you guys. That's the year I deserved a ring. But yeah, I think that, I think the rule is great that we're allowed to play freshmen. Henry Bird's a great example, someone who developed during the year. Trevor Radosevich was just on. Trevor's brother suffered a really harsh injury, and Henry got to start the last game of an undefeated season. So, it gives you chances for guys like him who are quicker to develop. The other thing I'll tell you is, anybody who has kids, multiple kids, some walk quicker, some, run a little quicker, some talk, earlier. They all learn to talk, they all learn to run, but there's a process. And we got guys this year that are going to be freshmen, they may run earlier, right? We have others that are going to walk, but eventually when they learn to run, they're going to run faster. And that's the fun part of coaching.
Yeah. And the good news is you have faith in them. They have faith in you and the program and being part of it. Henry, let me bring you into the conversation also and follow up on some of what Coach has said here. So as coming back as a veteran after an exceptional season, a 9-1 season, how do you see your job as a veteran player and maybe more important as a leader in terms of making sure that the team realizes that was last year. That's completely gone. This is a completely new season. How do you do that?
Well, I think the best thing I got going for me right now is I'm not alone as a leader. I think we got something over like 12 fifth years, who originally came in my class with me. So just from the very get-go, we've all known that, last year is last year. That Monday, right before Thanksgiving, we had to keep guys out of the weight room because they wanted to go ahead and start training. We had to be like, just, take your break, settle down, enjoy it. We start again next week. So I think from the very get-go, guys have been really rearing to go. So I don't think we've had too much of an issue on, looking back. And I think that's kind of the way it was instilled going forward, coming off of an undefeated season, 2018. Those old guys, Graham Automitis, Jake Strain, they taught us that same mentality of, that was last year, it's time to go for the new one. So it's been good to be able to pass that down to these young guys. We learned from the best in the past.
And Mike, a similar question to you. You especially, Luz, and Coach mentioned this, there are a lot of quality players who have graduated from last year's team. Not just quality players, but quality leaders. So coming into this season, what do you see your role as?
Right. So I'm usually portray myself as a leader by example and more so doing than anything. Because I believe the more people see you do things, the more actively they see you move around and communicate, the more they'll be primed to follow the same thing. But I believe this year that I'm be more of a communicable person and more active in telling people and helping people out. In that sense, that's one of the things I've been working on this offseason, especially in the spring, just being more communicative and allowing people to really see and follow suit and understand the standard that we have and moving forward. This is how we need to do it and basically follow me.
Let me say both of you the same question we've been talking about with some of the other players and even some of the other coaches, and that's the notion of these Friday night games in the package that the Ivy League has with ESPN. And Henry, you first, if I can. Talk about the difference in the feel and the attitude and building up for it, and then ultimately getting to the game day. What do you think about the Friday night games?
Well, they're certainly pretty different than a Saturday game. Just from the preparation standpoint, you got to be even more locked in. You don't get that extra day to rest. You immediately have to take care of your recovery, take care of, studying your playbook, all the defensive assignments, everything like that. But, all that extra work just does make it worth it. When you get to go out there, bright lights, everything like that. And, you're in front of the entire country, you're the marquee game for that night. It's, something that you don't really get to do that often in the FCS. But, it's a great opportunity to go out there, and show just how good of a football league we are.
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say Friday night is definitely a great opportunity. Kind of going back to the high school Friday night lights. It's a special opportunity to do that, especially as Henry mentioned in FCS. You don't get to do that often, and it kind of brings back the memories from doing having that in high school. And it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our abilities, especially on national television, and really showing what we're about and that we're here to play.
Coach, how about from your perspective? Because yours is different. There's travel involved and there's preparation involved, and you get a short week, and coaches never willingly give up preparation days if they can help it. But overall picture, what have you thought about the notion of the Friday night games?
Yeah, I think, I'm just grateful, right? And you do most of the games. And since I've been here, you've done them. And to have somebody like you sacrifice your time, we went back to back on the road last year, right? And 2 short weeks in a row. And obviously that's not ideal, but you don't say no, right? It's great for the league. It's great for our players. you're sacrificing your time. I don't know if everybody on the call knows who you are and how successful you've been, but like I get chills thinking about what we do and how we do this and how great this is for our players, most of whom, these two guys on the call are from Tennessee. Their families come to as many games as they can, but there's friends of theirs and relatives that can't make the games, and the opportunity to see them on a really great stage. And I don't think people understand how good our league is from top to bottom. And when they watch us play, the texts I get after talking about the quality of our league, it really showcases it. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to the Ivy League and the people who coordinate this and really make it run.
I can tell you, and following up on that thought, I had one of the very highest executives at ESPN say to me about the Ivy League games, said, I got to tell you something. He said that the Ivy games that we're showing have been some of the best college football games. He said, not just Ivy League games or not just FCS games. He said, these have been some of the best college football games we have had on our network year in and year out. And that goes to your point, Coach.
And I don't know if our players understand this, but literally you doing these games, when it's, Jack Ford doing it, it brings a credibility to it. I'm not trying like I think about, about you and everything else. It brings credibility, right? And a lot of these games might be on a TV, a different time or streamed. And to have you on there really does. And I really appreciate you doing that.
I got to tell you, it's one of the things I most enjoy. Somebody said to me one time, they were doing an interview and they said, so let me look at your career. You've been able to go to the White House and interview presidents, and you've covered political campaigns, and you've covered Olympics and stuff. What are you enjoying most now? And I said, you know what I'm enjoying most? Calling Ivy football games. My son, who was a Yale lacrosse player, says to me, I can't believe they actually pay you to do this. He said, you'd be going there anyway if you could. And I said, well, that's probably true. Let's not say that, though. We don't have to pass that on. Listen, gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Henry, Mike, good to talk with you. Get to meet you guys. We'll look forward to seeing you on the field this season. I'll mention in terms of scheduling for Princeton. So you open on the road down in Florida at Stetson at 1 p.m. on Saturday, September 17th. Then you're going to be for a Friday night game home in your building, Friday, October 14th against Brown. And then the next week, you're going to head up to Harvard. For rematch after that interesting end of the game last season. So I'm sure it's something that we'll talk about when we get up there. And that'll be, as I said, Friday up at Harvard on October 21st. So gentlemen, Henry, Mike, good luck to all of you. Coach, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Look forward to catching up with you again during the season. You all be well now.
Thank you, Jack.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. All right. Our thanks to our friends from Princeton, and as they head out, we'll bring in the folks from up in New Haven, the Yale folks, the Yale Bulldogs, to join us. We're going to be having head coach Tony Reno going to be joining us, along with offensive lineman and captain Nick Gargiulo. And we also have defensive lineman Osu Ifesinachukwu, and I hope I got that right. Ifesinachukwu. Good. Coach, good to see you.
Jack, always good to see you too.
Good. Oso's with us now. Oso, good to see you also.
See you.
And just waiting for Nick, who is just about to join us. And Nick is with us also. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us here in the Ivy League Football Media Day. Get to the two of you, the players, in just a moment with some thoughts. But Coach, let me start with you if I can. And I'm going to ask you the same thing that I've asked the seven coaches before you, which is give me your thoughts as you're preparing, getting ready to start practice this week, as you're preparing for the 2022 season.
Sure, Jack, always great to be here with you and, with everyone else in the Ivy League. Such an extraordinary league to be a part of. And, even more important for me is just representing this amazing Yale community. I put up our community against any in the country with our president, Peter Salve, and our dean of admissions, Jeremiah Quinlan, and Vicky Chun, our AD, and Anne-Marie Guglieri, our executive deputy AD. And, we've got such an amazing community here that really supports the mission of what we're trying to do in this league and, produce elite student athletes on and off the field. And, I just so excited to be a part of it. And, even more than that, and joining by these two guys who are on the screen here with me and you today. I mean, Nick Gargiulo and also Ifesinachukwu. I mean, both guys have
done an amazing job here at Yale. Two guys were huge parts of our 2019 Ivy League championship team, and both starters on that team. And, Nick from New York and Oso from Austin, Texas. And I can remember recruiting these two guys saying, if we can develop these skinny kind of guys into these guys, we know they both could be NFL prospects. And, and as we talk, I talked to these guys in the NFL about these two. I mean, they did exactly that. And, I didn't do anything about it. We just got them here. These two guys are joined by an amazing group of fifth-year seniors. And, Jack, we have 23 fifth-year seniors. And
I'm going to ask you about that. What does that mean? What to you as a coach, and in terms of preparation, of play on the field, of every aspect of your program? What does it mean to have that many guys who have been there for that many years?
I just think it speaks volumes to the culture that the players have created. I think, these guys could have easily, Oso, Nick, and their teammates could have easily, graduated, taken a grad transfer, looked at what was important to them. But, these two and their 21 other classmates made the decision that they wanted to do something special as a group. Guys understand what it's like to be a championship team, understand how the sacrifice they need to make. But even more importantly than that, we're guys that came back together because they wanted to leave the shirt better than they found it. And that's who we are as a football program. And, and for me, it's just, an honor to be a part of this group of young men.
Let's talk about coming into the season now. And coming off of last year, a lot of tough losses.
Mm-hmm.
If you look, and I say this as objectively as I possibly can. I don't say this as a former Yale player, but as somebody who has covered this league for many years. And did a couple of Yale games last year, covered a couple of Yale games, and saw a couple that they were not on the air. And my sense was that the record didn't reflect the quality of the team. And I mentioned this before to one of the other coaches, and this is where I have the temerity to disagree with the great Bill Parcells, who famously said, "You are what your record says you are." And I know Coach Parcells a little bit, and I will apologize to him next time I see him for saying this, but I don't necessarily think that that's the case. Would you agree, Coach, with me in terms of the record last year and the quality of the play and the players? It just, for whatever reason, tough losses, that loss to Harvard where in the last minute, they kind of drive the length of the field in a game that everybody felt that Yale had won. Would you agree that the record didn't really reflect the quality?
Well, Jack, I mean, I really feel like you either win or you learn, and you got to give credit to our opponents. I mean, they found ways to win those games. I think we didn't do what we had done in the past and find ways to win. And, I think you give all the credit to them. And I think that's the point that we need to grow from, and the evidence will be found in the season. Can we win those close games? And that's the piece of it, right? I mean, the difference between, first place and fourth place was the ability to close those games off. And these guys know that. And, I think that's been our focus since we started this part of the season, the first Monday after Thanksgiving. And that's the exciting thing for me is, I think this team has that DNA to do that. And now we just got to go prove it.
You talk about the ability to close out games. So, and that leads me to my next question to you, which is going into this season, what are some of the things that specifically you need to improve on from last year to be better this year?
Consistency, really consistency in all three areas. When you look at our consistency, when we've had really championship level teams, we've been able to be consistent for 60 minutes and then find a way to be better at the end than we were at the beginning. And find ways to, put points on the board and, stop opponents from scoring late. And those are the things that we need to do more consistently. Offensively, it's, consistently, holding drives, winning field position battles, flipping fields, and defensively, it's making people drive the field and winning the explosive play battle and being great in the red area. So, that the consistency we look at on that, and we saw a lot of growth of it in the spring, and, now we've got to put it together for the fall.
So we talk about what you need to get better at. How about some of the strengths coming into this season? Things that you would point to about this team and that you feel good about?
Honestly, it's the people. I've been excited about teams before, but probably not as, none any more than this team. And, we've had some great ones here, but I just love these kids, to be honest with you. I feel like it's they're actually paying me to do this job, and it's pretty cool because I get to be around just an amazing group of young men, and just to see how they work, see how they relate to each other, how invested they are in each other, how dedicated they are to each other. I mean, this has been one of the best off seasons we've had, and we are truly a player-led football team. And the ability for that to happen is nothing to do with me. That's all on our players. And I guess to me, that's the strength of who we are as our people.
I've asked this to some of the other coaches because similar comments have been made, and that's the notion of a player-led team. So how important is that to you as a head coach?
Well, it's everything for me. I mean, we spend a lot of time in leadership, and it's our lifeline, and that's what we do. And we recruit guys when we start their freshman year, and you hopefully help them develop as leaders sophomore, junior year, and then with the opportunity their senior year to really put that into action. And when people do things because they want to, not because they have to, or they do things they're truly willing to play for each other, that's a special thing. And to me, if you don't have that, you can't expect to have the other outcomes you want. To get to the outcomes you want at the end of the year or week in and week out, you need to have a team that is willing to play for each other. I think we have that here at Yale.
Nick, let me bring both you and Oso into the conversation. And Nick, I'll start with you first. And I asked the same question of the Harvard captain because it's different. And I don't mean to diminish the role of leadership on any other team in the league, but Harvard and Yale do it differently. They choose one captain, and that decision is made at the end of the preceding season by the team members and the team members only. So that being said, and understanding that the extent of the honor of that position, what was your reaction, your first reaction when it was announced that the team had said you're the guy for them?
Yeah, well, first off, obviously it was a tremendous honor, but I just feel incredibly lucky, right? There's only one guy in this position, but we have so many empowered individuals on this team in the senior class, in the junior class, and even in the young sophomore and freshman class, stepping up, taking leadership, taking ownership roles in what we want to accomplish. And I feel we've done a great job as a senior class in aligning these groups and making the pressure that's supposedly supposed to be on me non-existent. So I'm extremely grateful for these guys.
Oh, so let me talk to you about your side of the ball, if we can. And I'll ask you a similar question to what I asked Coach, and that is, coming into the season, looking back at last year, what do you feel that the defense needs to get better at to get to where you want to be this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at our team, we have all the talent in the world. It's just about now playing together, making sure that we're all aligned, because again, defense it's a difficult role. You're getting in calls, but you also have to see what the offense is doing and react. So you all have to be on the same page. And so, me being a leader on the team, a senior, my job is trying to get everybody to work together, see the same picture so that we can all react the same way. So really just focusing on playing together as one unit.
When you look at the defense, we talked about now what you need to do to get better, but what are the strengths that you see in terms of this defense coming into this season?
Experience. Like we said, we have 23 people return, or fifth-year seniors returning. So right there, that tells you just how many people we've had that have been around the program that have played. So our D-line, we have our starting D-line is all played before. Our secondaries all played before. We got a lot of experience. So I'm really excited to see what we can do with that understanding of how we play our defense, how we're going to work together. So
Nick, let me ask you the same question of you here. All right. So moving forward into the season, and there were some losses in terms of players, quality players from last year, but moving forward into this season, what do you see as, I'm going to reverse it. Let's not talk about what you need to get better at. Let's start with the strengths. What do you see as the strengths that the offense will bring into this season?
Yeah, once again, I think experience for our side of the ball as well. We've had a lot of guys who've had a lot of playing time, and I think that will bode well for us. But another thing is we're going to be going against the best defense in the Ivy League every single day. So, I mean, as Oso said, that D line has guys who've been playing for 2 or 3 seasons. So we're going to be getting great work every single day. So that's what I'm excited for.
It's, the expression about iron sharpening iron. And, I remember when I was playing at Yale, and I've been playing against some guys on the offense, one of whom ends up being a college football Hall of Famer. Others are significantly all Ivy, all American players. And you're thinking, man, games have got to be a little bit easier than what this is sometimes. But as you said, that's an advantage for you to be able to do that. How about Nick? And when you talk about that experience, and that's great, and it's invaluable. But if someone says, all right, to you, from your side of the ball, all right, what do you think we need to get better at? What were we not as good at doing last year? What's the answer to that question?
I think this is an easy one. It's the ability to finish, right? I think we need to get better at closing out drives, closing out games. You talked earlier about how these tight games, we ended up on the losing side a lot more than we wanted to last season. And now I think in the preseason moving forward, we're going to have to figure out how do we close out and finish the plays we want to.
Coach, let me ask you this first, and then I want to get responses from the players. And I've been asking everybody something similar to this, and that is the Friday night games, the ESPN Friday night games. And we've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again to you, how the ESPN folks have been so pleased with the quality of the football that the Ivy League has exhibited. Those of us who are so invested in the Ivy League, it's been great for us to be able to let other people see how good the football is in the Ivy League. I know in the games that I broadcast, I have mentioned repeatedly how many Ivy players are in the league, NFL rosters. Just as if that's your gauge of success, well, this league has been pretty successful. But I think it's been a great an opportunity, certainly as somebody who played in the league and who does this as sort of an enjoyable sidelight, to show it on Friday nights. But coaches, I know you have to look at it a little bit differently. But overall, what has your thought been, Coach, about the value of for the program and for the players of these Friday night games?
Sure, Jack. I think to your point, since 2017, we've had 5 guys that are in the NFL, so that's the last 4 seasons, with the last 2 being Rodney Thomas and JJ Howland. Rodney was drafted by the Colts and JJ signed by the Bucks. And so I think it speaks volumes, not only from us, but I know the other 7 schools in the league have players just like that as well. So, I think you'd find another conference in the FCS that's been able to put that many players in a short period of time, like the Ivy League has. Speaks volumes of the level of player we have. And, obviously the partnership with ESPN is been amazing. I know I have so many alumni and that send me a message after that they stream the game in on ESPN Plus, so they're able to see it, and how great the broadcasting is. And so the partnership with the Ivy League really just puts us in a different category, in just an elite level of broadcasting, and we're also just to really showcase the Ivy League. So we're just really fortunate to have that contract with ESPN, and obviously we play that team from the North once a year up, on ESPN, and whenever that's scheduled on that last Saturday before Thanksgiving in November. And, we're fortunate enough to get another game this year on it we'll go down to Columbia, in the second half of the year. So we're excited about that opportunity as well.
Oh, so how about you as a player? Let's talk about going down to Columbia. That's a facility that's been significantly redone over the last few years. It's now an impressive facility. It's down in New York City. I said it'll be on a Friday night. What are your thoughts about that?
You know me, I'm from Texas, so Friday Night Lights. That holds a.
That's right. You born, raised, and lived the Friday Night Lights.
Exactly. So personally, I'm excited just to have that kind of experience again. But for our team, it's just a great experience to play in that environment. Like it's just it really just feels differently. It really does, and I'm so excited that we get to show all of our talent on our team, like in a big stage like that on ESPN. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I think Oso put it great. I know we're grateful for the exposure that we're going to get being on ESPN, and we always are grateful for that. I think this one's a a little special going back to New York and playing. I know the schedules have gotten messed up, and I haven't had the chance to play back in New York, but I know I'll definitely have some family there. So I'm excited to play that one.
Good, it works out that way. Coach, let me come back to with a player question if I can. Look, it's always, people always want to talk about the quarterbacks. And again, we've heard repeatedly say the Ivy League is a quarterback-driven league, and as I've said before, you could probably say that about a lot of, but certainly it does seem to be here. Last year, there was a little bit of uncertainty in the position, and then the last few games, Nolan Grooms gets put in there, and I will tell you what I said on the air watching him play, and again, try to be entirely objective, but I said this kid's a player. I mean, there is an enormous upside for what he can do with his career. Give me your sense of his development. It was just a couple of games last year, but what you saw in those games and what you've seen so far leading up to starting the season this year.
Nolan was really earned an opportunity in a situation where he came in and learned under fire, and I thought he did incredibly well in that situation as a young guy coming in, and he grew every week. He grew with every throw. He grew with every snap, and you've seen him take off in the offseason here. And from the first moment where he was selected as one of our offseason captains, and he really grew in that role, in a leadership role. And I credit Nick and Oso and the rest of the senior class for working with him and helping him grow and he, as a young person. But I think it was he understands the value of that and how important leadership is. But as a quarterback, he's grown a ton. And Kevin Kale, our offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, has done a great job with him. And he had a great spring, and he's been here all summer, and he's been working to improve his game all summer. So just excited about seeing him grow. But I think the nice thing about him and his position is we feel we've got a great group up front and both sides of the ball. And and as Jack, better than me, that's where it's won. And the offensive defensive lines, and we've got really good groups there. And I think he's got a good group of skill players around him that he can be a great point guard and distribute. So just excited about seeing him grow this preseason.
Let me ask you both the players same question. So I mentioned, in that week in October, you're going to be at Columbia. All right. And Nick, you talked about the opportunity to get down there. And Saturday, November 19th, up at Harvard to play. Yale has not played at Harvard in 6 years. Right. So you guys have never played in that building. So what are your thoughts? And also I'll ask you first, and then Nick, I'll follow up with you also. What are your thoughts about for, as I've said on the air, we perhaps presumptuously call it the game, although I don't think it's presumptuous at all. I think it is in fact the game. But what do you think also of playing the game for the first time in your career up in Harvard Stadium?
It's exciting. I'm always excited about new opportunities, new experiences. So it's going to be nice to see what that atmosphere feels like, that hostile environment. But we're prepared for it. We played at Fenway, like that was a crazy venue. So we're used to seeing like crazy venues. So it's going to be a good time. It's going to be exciting. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Nick, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a boring answer here. I know we're definitely focused on week one and playing Holden Boston in that capacity, but they're gonna have Harvard's gonna have a great team. They're gonna have a great atmosphere, and it's gonna be a great game. So I think it's something that's on the back burner for now, and we hope that we play them with a great record.
That's the answer you'd expect from your captain, isn't it, Coach?
Absolutely.
Let's play the first game first, and then we'll deal with that one as we get to it down the road. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Nick, also, thanks so much for spending some time with us. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on field. I want to mention that Yale, I talked about the two ESPN games. Season opener, Bulldogs taking on a tough number 16 Holy Cross up in Worcester. On that first week. So gentlemen, good luck to all of that. Coach, it's always a pleasure talking with you. We'll look forward to catching up with you during the course of the season. Good luck to all of you guys. Everybody stay well.
Thanks, Jack. Great seeing you.
Thank you.
So then, as we say goodbye to our friends at Yale, that'll conclude our program. I want to thank all of you for joining us here for the 2022 Ivy League football preseason media day. hopefully you got a chance to learn some things from the coaches and the players, get to know them a little bit better. And as I always said, you spend some time talking with these young men, and it certainly makes you feel good if you're a fan of the Ivy League, or if you're just a fan of college football. It certainly makes you realize this game is in some pretty good hands right now. So a reminder that that if you want to get access to this, you should contact and get to JJ Klein, the league's football communications contact I mentioned to you, and get a copy of this. We appreciate you spending time with us, and we hope that this was informative, helpful, and entertaining for you. And we're all looking forward to a sensational 2022 Ivy League season. So thanks to all of you. Everybody stay well. Enjoy the football season.